Have you ever wondered why some words land with the impact of a gentle touch, while others crash like a discordant note, leaving only confusion or distance in their wake? Do you sometimes feel a subtle disconnect in conversations? A sense that your true message isn't quite reaching the heart of another, or that you're missing deeper currents in their responses? We all yearn to connect, to be understood, to influence positively, and to navigate the intricate dance of human interaction with grace and purpose. Yet, so often, we stumble over unspoken rules, unseen forces, and the hidden psychological triggers that shape every single exchange we have. Imagine for a moment being able to truly master your communication, not just by choosing the right words, but by understanding the silent symphony of human psychology that plays beneath every conversation. Picture yourself capable of building instant rapport, diffusing tension with a soft touch, inspiring action with quiet confidence, and truly being heard in a world full of noise. What if you could unlock the secrets to not only expressing yourself with clarity, but also deeply understanding others' motivations, fears, and desires? This journey we're about to embark on is more than just a lesson in speaking. It's an exploration of the human heart and mind. We'll delve into 30 powerful psychological triggers, hidden truths, and lesser-known insights that subtly yet profoundly influence every interaction, from the casual chat to the most crucial negotiation. These aren't manipulative tricks, but rather keys to unlocking deeper understanding, fostering genuine connection, and becoming a more authentic, impactful communicator. Each trigger we uncover will reveal a piece of the intricate puzzle of human behavior, offering you a profound shift in your mindset and perception. Get ready to transform your conversations, your relationships, and ultimately, your world. Have you ever found yourself in a conversation where, almost instinctively, you felt a deep sense of connection with someone you just met, or perhaps, on the flip side, you've experienced an awkward interaction where, despite your best efforts, a barrier seemed to stand between you and the other person? It's a perplexing feeling, isn't it? This subtle dance of connection and disconnection often hinges on an unconscious, yet incredibly powerful psychological trigger. What if you could gently, almost imperceptibly, create an immediate sense of ease and understanding with anyone you encounter, like an invisible bridge forming between two souls? This fascinating phenomenon is known as mirroring. It's not about mimicking someone in an obvious or mocking way. Rather, it's the subtle, unconscious replication of another person's nonverbal cues, their posture, gestures, vocal tone, rhythm of speech, or even breathing patterns. Think of it as a natural human tendency to synchronize with those we feel comfortable with, a silent language of empathy and acceptance. When done authentically, mirroring acts like a secret handshake, signaling to the other person, "I'm like you. I understand you. You can trust me." The mechanism behind mirroring is deeply rooted in our neurological wiring, particularly involving mirror neurons. These remarkable brain cells fire not only when we perform an action, but also when we observe someone else performing the same action. It's why watching someone yawn can make you yawn, or seeing someone wince in pain can make you feel a phantom ache. In the context of communication, mirror neurons help us simulate and understand the intentions and emotions of others. When you subtly mirror someone's posture, for instance, your brain is in a way, feeling what it's like to be in their shoes, fostering empathy. This unconscious alignment sends a powerful, primal message of affiliation and comfort. It creates a sense of shared experience, making the other person feel seen and understood on a fundamental level. Our brains crave this sense of familiarity and belonging, and mirroring fulfills that craving, releasing feel-good neurochemicals that pave the way for trust and openness. Consider a real-world example. You're in a job interview. If the interviewer leans forward slightly, and you subtly and naturally adjust your posture to also lean forward, you're unconsciously creating a physical alignment. Or imagine a sales meeting where the client speaks slowly and deliberately by unconsciously matching their pace. You signal that you're on their wavelength, rather than rushing them. Even in a personal confrontation, if someone is speaking softly and you instinctively lower your voice to match, you can de-escalate tension by meeting them where they are emotionally. Conversely, think about how jarring it feels when someone's body language is completely out of sync with yours. Arms crossed when you're open, or speaking rapidly when you're trying to have a calm discussion. This misalignment can unconsciously create friction and a sense of unease, making communication far more challenging. The profound impact of mirroring is that it fosters instant rapport and strengthens connection. When someone feels a subconscious resonance with you, their defenses naturally lower. They become more receptive to your ideas, more willing to share, and more open to collaboration. For self-development, understanding mirroring allows you to consciously cultivate deeper empathy and build stronger relationships, both professional and personal. It helps you become a more perceptive and adaptable communicator, capable of connecting with a wider range of people. Conversely, recognizing when someone might be mirroring you can offer insights into their attempt to connect, allowing you to respond with greater awareness and intention. It transforms communication from a purely verbal exchange into a holistic dance of understanding and mutual respect. To gently apply this in your own life, remember to keep it subtle and authentic. The goal isn't to perfectly imitate, but to subtly align. Observe and adapt. Pay attention to a person's general posture, their characteristic hand gestures, their speaking pace, or the energy of their voice. Then, without making it obvious, gently incorporate elements of their nonverbal communication into your own. For instance, if they speak slowly, try slowing your own pace slightly. If they lean back and are relaxed, allow yourself to mirror a relaxed posture. Focus on empathy, not manipulation. The true power of mirroring comes from a place of genuine desire to connect and understand. If it feels forced or inauthentic, it will likely create the opposite effect. Think of it as attuning yourself to their frequency, allowing you to resonate together. This isn't about controlling the other person, but about creating a fertile ground for genuine connection to blossom. So, the next time you step into an interaction, remember the silent symphony of mirroring. By gently aligning your nonverbal cues with others, you can unlock an immediate sense of rapport, creating a harmonious space where communication flows freely and connections deepen profoundly. It's a testament to the idea that sometimes the most powerful forms of communication happen without a single word. Have you ever received a thoughtful, unexpected gift, perhaps a small favor or a genuine compliment, and felt an almost immediate, gentle urge to return the kindness? It's a subtle pull, isn't it? A silent agreement within us that Generosity should be met with generosity. Or, conversely, have you noticed how some people seem to effortlessly build goodwill and cooperation around them, almost as if they possess a secret key to unlocking others' willingness to help? This universal human tendency, this unspoken social contract, is one of the most powerful and often overlooked psychological triggers in communication. What if you could learn to harness this gentle tug, not for manipulation, but to foster deeper connections and create a more collaborative world around you? Like a harmonious echo, this profound principle is known as reciprocity. At its heart, it's the ingrained human need to respond in kind when someone has done something for us. It's not necessarily about an immediate, transactional exchange, but about building a social credit system where giving genuinely creates a desire in others to give back, to help, or to simply be more agreeable. It's a fundamental aspect of human cooperation and community building, a gentle loop of positive interaction. The mechanism behind reciprocity is deeply ingrained in our social and evolutionary history. From an evolutionary perspective, early human societies thrived on cooperation. If you helped me hunt, I would help you build shelter. This created a survival advantage, hardwiring a sense of obligation and gratitude into our psyches. Neurologically, acts of giving and receiving often trigger the release of oxytocin and dopamine, neurochemicals associated with bonding, trust, and pleasure. When someone does something for us, it feels good. And our brains register this positive experience, creating a subconscious desire to maintain that positive feeling by reciprocating. It's a self-reinforcing cycle of goodwill. Think of it like planting a seed of kindness. It naturally wants to grow into a reciprocal gesture. Consider how this plays out in everyday life. A restaurant offers a small, complimentary appetizer before your meal. Suddenly, you might feel more inclined to leave a generous tip or return to that establishment. A colleague helps you out with a tight deadline, and later, when they need assistance, you're far more likely to go above and beyond for them. Political campaigns often send out small, personalized gifts, knowing that even a trivial item can create a subtle sense of obligation in the recipient. In a sales context, offering valuable free content or advice up front often leads to increased sales later, because the customer feels they've already received value and are more inclined to reciprocate with a purchase. This isn't about guilt. It's about the innate human desire to balance the scales of generosity and avoid feeling indebted. The profound impact of understanding reciprocity is that it allows you to cultivate genuine goodwill and foster cooperation. For self-development, it encourages a mindset of giving without immediate expectation, knowing that such generosity naturally enriches your relationships and opportunities over time. It transforms interactions from competitive battles into collaborative dances. It helps you recognize that every act of kindness, every shared insight, every moment of genuine help you offer is an investment in stronger bonds and more fruitful outcomes. Conversely, being aware of reciprocity can also protect you from manipulation. If an offer feels overly generous or comes with an unspoken pressure, understanding this principle can help you evaluate the true intent behind it and decide whether to reciprocate. It empowers you to give from a place of genuine desire rather than obligation, and to receive with a clear understanding of the social dynamics at play. To gently apply the art of reciprocity, begin by embracing a mindset of proactive generosity. Look for opportunities to offer genuine value, a kind word, helpful information, or a small favor without expecting anything in return. For instance, in a discussion, instead of immediately stating your point, perhaps share a relevant piece of information that benefits the other person. In a new connection, consider how you can genuinely help them, perhaps by making an introduction or sharing a useful resource. Give what is valuable to them, not necessarily what is easy for you. The key is authenticity. Genuine acts of kindness resonate far more deeply than calculated gestures. The more you give, the more you naturally invite reciprocity, creating a virtuous cycle of positive interaction. It's not about keeping score, but about understanding the natural ebb and flow of human connection. So, the next time you wish to build a bridge of cooperation or simply strengthen a relationship, remember the gentle tug of reciprocity. By being the first to give, by offering genuine value and kindness, you don't just communicate, you plant seeds of connection that can blossom into lasting goodwill and a more harmonious exchange. Have you ever found yourself racing against a ticking clock to snag a limited time offer, or felt a sudden surge of desire for an item when you learned there were only a few left? It's a common experience, isn't it? That almost irrational urge to acquire something precisely because it's difficult to obtain, or because the window of opportunity is rapidly closing. This deep-seated human response to perceived limitations is one of the most potent psychological triggers, subtly yet powerfully influencing our choices and behaviors. What if you could understand the magnetic pull of scarcity and learn to communicate the unique, time-sensitive value of your message, making it resonate with an almost irresistible urgency, like a rare melody that might fade if not heard now? This compelling principle is known as the scarcity principle. It states that opportunities seem more valuable to us when their availability is limited, whether it's a limited quantity of an item, a deadline for an offer, or exclusive access to information. The perception of scarcity ignites a powerful psychological response. It taps into our inherent fear of loss, making us believe that if we don't act now, we might miss out on something valuable or unique forever. The mechanism behind scarcity is multifaceted, deeply rooted in our cognitive biases and evolutionary instincts. One key aspect is loss aversion, a well-documented phenomenon where the pain of losing something is psychologically more powerful than the pleasure of gaining something equivalent. When something is scarce, we perceive a potential loss, the loss of opportunity, the loss of value, the loss of a unique experience. This triggers a stronger motivational drive to act than the desire for a mere gain. Furthermore, scarcity often implies exclusivity and high demand. If something is rare, our minds instinctively assume it must be valuable, sought after, and therefore desirable. This creates a psychological shortcut. If others want it, and it's hard to get, it must be good. It also subtly challenges our freedom and autonomy. When something becomes limited, our perceived freedom to acquire it is threatened, which ironically makes us want it even more. A psychological reactance. Think about how this plays out in various scenarios, from airlines announcing only 3 seats left at this price, to online retailers displaying X items remaining. These aren't just inventory updates. They are subtle psychological nudges, leveraging scarcity. Subscription plans often have early bird discounts that expire, creating urgency. Political campaigns use "this is your last chance to donate" messages before an election. Even in daily interactions, if a colleague mentions that a particular expert is rarely available for consultation. Their advice suddenly seems more valuable. Conversely, consider what happens when something is perceived as endlessly available. We often procrastinate, feeling no urgency to engage with it, no matter how valuable it might objectively be. The absence of scarcity often translates to a lack of perceived urgency or importance. The profound impact of understanding scarcity is that it empowers you to communicate value with greater impact and encourage decisive action. For self-development, it helps you recognize when you might be succumbing to an artificial sense of urgency created by others, allowing you to make more deliberate choices rather than reacting out of fear of missing out. It also teaches you to articulate the unique, finite aspects of your own offerings, whether it's your time, your skills, or a particular opportunity you're presenting. When you genuinely communicate that something has limited availability or is truly a unique chance, you elevate its perceived value and motivate others to engage more thoughtfully and promptly. To gently and ethically apply the principle of scarcity, focus on authentic limitation. Don't fabricate scarcity. Instead, genuinely highlight what is truly limited, unique, or time-bound about your message, idea, or offering. For example, if you're offering a workshop, communicate the actual number of spots available or the genuine deadline for registration. If you're sharing an insight, emphasize its novelty or how it's not widely known. Frame it as an opportunity, not a threat. Instead of, "You'll regret it if you miss out," try, "This is a unique chance to," or "only available to the first X people." This subtle shift in language makes it about the benefit of gaining rather than the pain of losing, while still leveraging the underlying psychological pull. Always ensure your communication is honest and transparent. The power of scarcity lies in its genuine nature, not in deceptive tactics. So, the next time you want your message to truly resonate and inspire action, remember the allure of scarcity. By thoughtfully and ethically highlighting genuine limitations, you can create a compelling sense of urgency and value, ensuring your words not only captivate but also motivate others to embrace the unique opportunities you present. Have you ever found yourself nodding along, almost instinctively, to someone's advice or opinion, simply because they were introduced as an expert, a doctor, or held a position of power? Or perhaps you've noticed how certain messages seem to carry more weight, more truth, not necessarily because of their content alone, but because of who delivered them. It's a pervasive and often unconscious bias in human judgment. This powerful tendency to defer to those perceived as knowledgeable or legitimate. What if you could understand the subtle yet profound influence of authority and learn how to lend genuine credibility to your words, ensuring your message is not just heard, but deeply trusted and respected, like the wise counsel of a seasoned guide? This compelling psychological trigger is the authority principle. It posits that people are more likely to comply with requests or believe information coming from an individual or source they perceive as legitimate, knowledgeable, or powerful. Our society is structured around hierarchies and specialized knowledge, and we are conditioned from a young age to respect and obey those in positions of authority, whether they are parents, teachers, doctors, or law enforcement. This automatic deference serves as a mental shortcut, saving us the effort of critically evaluating every piece of information or instruction. The mechanism behind the authority principle is deeply rooted in our cognitive programming and social learning. From a young age, We are taught that following the guidance of authorities generally leads to positive outcomes and avoids negative consequences. This creates a learned response of compliance. Neurologically, deferring to authority can reduce cognitive load. Our brains prefer shortcuts, and trusting an expert allows us to conserve mental energy rather than performing extensive analysis ourselves. Moreover, perceived authority often implies access to superior information, experience, or power, making their pronouncements seem inherently more valid or beneficial. It's a deep-seated belief that they know best. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. Advertisements frequently feature doctors or scientists endorsing products, even if the connection is tenuous. Uniforms, whether of a police officer, a pilot, or a chef, instantly convey a sense of authority and competence. In political campaigns, endorsements from respected community leaders or former officials can sway undecided voters. During a sales presentation, credentials, years of experience, or testimonials from satisfied high-profile clients lend significant weight to the salesperson's claims. Even in a simple daily interaction, if you're discussing a complex topic and someone casually mentions they've published research on it, their subsequent statements immediately gain more gravitas. Conversely, think about how quickly we dismiss advice from someone we perceive as lacking expertise or credibility. Regardless of how sound their advice might objectively be, the absence of perceived authority can render even the most brilliant insights unheard. The profound impact of understanding authority is that it empowers you to establish genuine credibility and enhance the trustworthiness of your communication. For self-development, it encourages you to cultivate true expertise and ethical practice, knowing that authentic authority is built on knowledge and integrity, not just a title. It helps you recognize when you might be unduly influenced by superficial markers of authority, prompting you to critically evaluate the message itself rather than just its source. When you genuinely embody expertise and communicate it effectively, your words carry more weight, inspire greater confidence, and foster deeper trust. It's about earning the right to be heard and respected. To gently and ethically apply the principle of authority, focus on demonstrating genuine expertise and trustworthiness. This isn't about arrogance, but about confidently and relevantly showcasing your knowledge and experience. For example, when sharing an idea, you might briefly mention relevant past experiences, specific training you've undergone, or data you've analyzed. If appropriate, reference reputable sources, studies, or statistics that back up your claims. Dress and carry yourself with confidence and professionalism. In situations where it matters, subtle cues like attire, posture, and articulate speech can unconsciously contribute to an impression of competence. Most importantly, be an authority on your own experiences and perspectives. Your unique insights, delivered with conviction and genuine belief, carry their own form of personal authority. Always ensure that any claim of authority is truthful and relevant, as false pretense will quickly erode trust. So, the next time you wish for your message to truly resonate with conviction and be met with trust, remember the subtle whispers of authority. By diligently cultivating genuine expertise, confidently sharing your knowledge, and always operating with integrity, you ensure your words don't just speak, but carry the profound weight of credibility, guiding others with wisdom and confidence. Have you ever found yourself scrolling through online reviews before making a purchase, or choosing a restaurant because it had a long line outside? It's a familiar human tendency. isn't it? That quiet, almost automatic inclination to follow the lead of others, especially when we're unsure or facing a decision. This powerful, yet often unseen, psychological trigger influences countless choices we make every single day. What if you could understand the magnetic pull of social proof and gently leverage it to build collective belief, encouraging others to embrace your ideas with a sense of comfort and reassurance, like a gentle wave guiding them to shore? This compelling principle is known as social proof. At its core, it's the phenomenon where people assume the actions of others reflect the correct behavior for a given situation. When we see many people doing something, believing something, or endorsing something, we tend to perceive it as valid, desirable, or trustworthy. It acts as a mental shortcut, especially in ambiguous situations, allowing us to rely on the wisdom of the crowd rather than expending our own cognitive resources to evaluate every option. The mechanism behind social proof is deeply intertwined with our inherent need for belonging and certainty. From an evolutionary perspective, following the group often provided safety and increased chances of survival. Neurologically, our brains are wired to look for patterns and consensus. When many people validate an idea or action, it triggers a sense of cognitive ease and reduces perceived risk. It taps into our desire to be part of the in-group and our fear of being an outlier or making a mistake. The more people who endorse something, the stronger the signal that it is correct, popular, or effective, creating a powerful, almost gravitational pull. Think about how this manifests in the real world. Bestseller lists aren't just about sales, they tell us, many people value this book. Comedy shows use laugh tracks, not just to amuse, but to signal to the audience when something is funny. Online courses often display X students enrolled, or over 10,000 successful graduates, leveraging the number of participants as a testament to their value. During a public speech, if a few people start applauding, it often encourages the rest of the audience to join in. Even in personal interactions, if a friend tells you that everyone is talking about a particular movie, you're far more likely to check it out. Conversely, imagine trying to convince someone to try a new, unproven concept with no existing users or endorsements. It's a much harder sell because there's no social validation to lean on. The profound impact of understanding social proof is that it allows you to build consensus and foster acceptance for your ideas or messages. For self-development, it helps you critically evaluate when you might be unconsciously following the crowd, encouraging you to form your own informed opinions rather than simply deferring to popular belief. It also teaches you to ethically and genuinely demonstrate the positive reception and endorsement of your own efforts. Whether it's the positive feedback you've received, the number of people who have benefited from your advice, or the collective wisdom that supports your viewpoint. When you can show that others have found value in what you offer, it significantly lowers the barrier to entry for new individuals. To gently and ethically apply the principle of social proof, focus on showcasing genuine validation. This isn't about fabricating popularity, but about authentically highlighting existing positive endorsements. For example, when presenting an idea, share genuine testimonials, positive feedback, or success stories from those who have already engaged with it. If relevant, mention statistics like, over X, people have found this helpful, or our community consistently praises. In a discussion, you might reference reputable thought leaders or widely accepted principles that align with your message. Emphasize similarity. Social proof is most potent when the others are similar to the target audience. For instance, if you're trying to influence a group of parents, testimonials from other parents will be more impactful than those from unrelated professionals. Always ensure your social proof is authentic and verifiable. Its power lies in its genuine nature. So, the next time you want your message to resonate with a sense of shared acceptance and widespread appeal, remember the comforting embrace of social proof. By genuinely demonstrating that others have found value and consensus in your ideas, you create a powerful magnetic pull, guiding individuals towards your message with a feeling of comfort and collective reassurance. Have you ever noticed how, once you've publicly stated an opinion or taken a small action, you feel an almost irresistible urge to follow through? Even if circumstances change, it's as if a quiet internal agreement is forged, making it surprisingly difficult to backpedal. Or perhaps you've seen how some people effortlessly guide conversations towards agreement, seemingly building momentum with each small nod of affirmation. This deep-seated human desire to align our present actions with our past declarations is one of the most powerful and often subtle psychological triggers. What if you could understand the gentle power of commitment and consistency and learn to guide individuals towards genuine agreement, naturally leading to greater, more significant understanding, like a clear path unfolding before them? This profound principle is known as the commitment and consistency principle. It states that once we make a commitment, even a small one, we feel a strong psychological pressure to behave consistently with that commitment. This consistency is valued in society, seen as a sign of integrity, rationality, and reliability. When we act inconsistently, it can lead to cognitive dissonance, an uncomfortable mental state caused by conflicting beliefs or actions, which we instinctively try to resolve by aligning our future behavior with our past commitments. The mechanism behind commitment and consistency is deeply rooted in our need for internal coherence and social approval. Psychologically, maintaining consistency reduces the mental effort required to make new decisions. Once a stand is taken, it's easier to stick with it. Socially, being consistent enhances our reputation. We are perceived as trustworthy and dependable. Neurologically, making a decision or commitment can activate reward pathways in the brain, and sticking to that decision reinforces those rewards. This intrinsic desire to be consistent, to uphold our word even to ourselves, becomes a powerful, silent driver of behavior. It's like an internal compass, constantly nudging us to stay on the chosen course. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. A charity asks you to sign a petition for a cause you care about, having publicly committed to supporting that cause. You're now more likely to donate when asked later. Car dealerships often get you to agree to a small detail first, like a specific feature, before moving to the overall price. Online forms sometimes ask you to click "I agree" to terms and conditions before proceeding. Securing a micro-commitment. In a team meeting, if someone publicly states their support for a new project, they are much more likely to contribute actively to its success. Even in personal relationships, if you get someone to agree to a small favor, they are more inclined to agree to a slightly larger one later. Conversely, think about how difficult it is to change someone's mind once they've publicly declared a strong stance on an issue. Their commitment to that stance makes them resistant to new information. The profound impact of understanding commitment and consistency is that it allows you to gently guide individuals towards positive outcomes and build stronger relationships based on trust. For self-development, it helps you recognize the subtle ways your own past commitments might be influencing your present choices, empowering you to make conscious decisions rather than defaulting to old patterns. It also teaches you the power of small steps. By encouraging small, initial agreements or actions that align with a larger goal, you can build momentum and facilitate greater change. When you understand this principle, you can foster cooperation by inviting people into small, agreeable actions that naturally lead to more significant shared commitments. To gently and ethically apply the principle of commitment and consistency, focus on securing small, voluntary, and public commitments. This isn't about tricking someone, but about helping them take ownership of an idea or action. For example, instead of asking someone to fully commit to a large project, ask if they'd be willing to explore one small aspect of it, or if they agree with a fundamental premise. Encourage them to articulate their agreement verbally, or in writing if appropriate. Start small. The foot in the door technique is a classic example. A small initial request. Signing a petition makes a larger, related request, donating more likely. Emphasize their past positive actions or statements that align with your current suggestion, reminding them of their own consistency. Always ensure the initial commitment is genuine and that the subsequent requests are logically consistent with it. So, the next time you seek to build consensus or encourage action, remember the guiding path of commitment and consistency. By gently inviting individuals to take small, voluntary steps that align with their values or interests, you don't just communicate, you empower them to walk a path of self-alignment, naturally leading to greater agreement and meaningful engagement. Have you ever found yourself saying yes to a request from a friend or someone you genuinely admire, even if you might have hesitated if the request came from a stranger? Or perhaps you've noticed how certain people seem to effortlessly charm their way into hearts and minds, their messages received with an open warmth that others struggle to cultivate. This undeniable human tendency to favor and be influenced by those we like is one of the most pervasive and powerful psychological triggers in all communication. What if you could understand the gentle, magnetic pull of liking and learn to connect with others through genuine affinity, making your message resonate not just with logic, but with the warm glow of genuine rapport, like sunlight breaking through clouds? This fundamental principle is known as the liking principle. Simply put, people are more likely to be persuaded by and agreeable to individuals they like. This liking can stem from various factors: shared interests, physical attractiveness, compliments, cooperation towards a common goal, or even simple familiarity. It's a powerful emotional shortcut that bypasses critical thinking and creates an automatic predisposition to agree or comply. The mechanism behind the liking principle is deeply ingrained in our social nature. From an evolutionary perspective, liking fosters cooperation and reduces conflict within a group, enhancing survival. Neurologically, interacting with someone we like can trigger the release of oxytocin, the bonding hormone, which promotes trust and connection. When we like someone, we are more open, less guarded, and more willing to believe what they say. Our brains naturally associate positive feelings with positive attributes, creating a halo effect where we perceive liked individuals as more honest, intelligent, or capable, even if there's no objective evidence for it. It's a fundamental human desire for connection and positive social interaction that subtly yet profoundly influences our receptiveness. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. Salespeople are often trained to find common ground with clients, whether it's a shared hobby, a mutual acquaintance, or even a similar background. Charities often use attractive and relatable individuals in their campaigns. Compliments, when sincere, can instantly soften an interaction and make someone more receptive. Team-building exercises that foster cooperation can improve communication and trust among colleagues. In a job interview, showcasing your enthusiasm and finding common ground with the interviewer can be as crucial as your qualifications. Even in a simple personal discussion, if you genuinely admire an aspect of someone's character and express it, they become much more open to your perspective. Conversely, think about how difficult it is to persuade someone you dislike or distrust. No matter how logical your argument may be, the lack of liking acts as a powerful barrier. The profound impact of understanding the liking principle is that it empowers you to build genuine rapport and foster deeper, more influential connections. For self-development, it encourages you to cultivate authentic empathy, seek common ground, and practice genuine appreciation for others, knowing that these qualities naturally make you more approachable and influential. It helps you recognize when your own biases might be influencing your judgments based on superficial liking, prompting you to evaluate messages more critically. When you genuinely connect with others, not only does your message get heard, but it lands with greater warmth, trust, and openness, transforming interactions from transactional exchanges into meaningful human connections. To gently and ethically apply the principle of liking, focus on cultivating authentic connection and expressing genuine appreciation. This isn't about faking friendship, but about seeking commonality and being genuinely amiable. For example, find common ground in conversations. Actively listen for shared interests, experiences, or values, and gently highlight them. Oh, you also enjoy hiking, I love it. Offer sincere compliments. A genuine compliment about someone's idea, effort, or insight can instantly build bridges. Cooperate towards shared goals. Working together on a task or problem naturally fosters liking. Be genuinely pleasant and positive. Simple warmth, a smile, and an open demeanor can make a significant difference. Emphasize similarity. People tend to like those who are similar to them, so subtly highlighting shared characteristics, e.g., as a fellow parent, can increase rapport. Always ensure your expressions of liking are authentic and come from a place of genuine connection, as insincerity is easily detected and can be detrimental. So, the next time you wish for your message to truly penetrate hearts and minds, remember the warm glow of liking. By genuinely seeking connection, expressing sincere appreciation, and fostering shared experiences, you don't just communicate. You create a space of genuine affinity, ensuring your words are welcomed with openness, trust, and the profound embrace of human connection. Have you ever noticed how the exact same piece of information can evoke vastly different responses depending on how it's presented? Think about a glass of water. Calling it half full inspires optimism, while half empty might elicit a sigh of disappointment. It's the same amount of water, yet the subtle linguistic choice dramatically alters our perception and emotional response. This powerful, yet often invisible, psychological trigger is constantly shaping how we interpret reality and make decisions. What if you could understand the profound influence of framing and learn to subtly shape perception with your words? gently guiding minds towards your desired perspective. Like an artist masterfully choosing the perfect light for their painting, this compelling principle is known as the framing effect. It describes how the way information is presented, or framed, significantly influences the choices people make and their overall perception of the information. It's not about changing the facts themselves, but about emphasizing certain aspects, using specific language, or highlighting particular implications to steer interpretation in a desired direction. The mechanism behind the framing effect is deeply rooted in our cognitive processes and how our brains make sense of complexity. Our minds use mental shortcuts, or heuristics, to process information efficiently. Framing exploits these shortcuts by highlighting certain attributes and downplaying others, making some aspects more salient and emotionally resonant. For instance, gain framing. Focusing on what can be gained often encourages risk-averse behavior, while loss framing, focusing on what can be lost, tends to encourage risk-taking behavior to avoid the loss. Our brains are also highly susceptible to the power of suggestion and association. The words chosen to frame an idea evoke specific images, emotions, and existing cognitive schemas, shaping the entire context through which the information is understood. It's about influencing the mental lens through which people view a situation. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. In marketing, a product might be advertised as 90% fat-free gain frame. Sounds good rather than contains 10% fat loss frame. Sounds less appealing, even though both statements are identical. Doctors explaining a medical procedure might say 90% success rate, gain frame, versus 10% failure rate, loss frame, to influence patient perception. Subscription plans often highlight save $50 per year gain frame instead of pay $417 more per month loss frame. Political campaigns are masters of framing, choosing words to evoke patriotism or fear, happiness or anger, to rally support or opposition. Even in daily interactions, if you're asking for help, could you help me for just 5 minutes? Framing it as a small commitment is often more effective than, could you help me with this big task? Framing it as a large burden. The frame you choose can determine whether your message is seen as an opportunity or a threat, a solution or a problem. The profound impact of understanding the framing effect is that it empowers you to communicate with greater clarity, empathy, and persuasive power. For self-development, it makes you incredibly aware of how media, politicians, and even your own internal monologue frame information, allowing you to critically evaluate messages and challenge your own biases. It teaches you that the truth isn't just about facts, but about the context and emotional resonance created by how those facts are presented. When you master framing, you can proactively choose language that aligns with your positive intentions, guiding others towards understanding and agreement, fostering hope, and inspiring constructive action rather than fear or negativity. To gently and ethically apply the principle of framing, focus on choosing language that aligns with your desired emotional outcome and perspective. This isn't about deception, but about emphasizing the positive aspects, the opportunities, or the solutions. For example, when discussing a challenge, instead of dwelling on the problem, frame it as a valuable learning experience or a unique opportunity for growth. When presenting options, highlight the benefits and advantages of the choice you believe is most beneficial. Use positive language. Replace negative words with neutral or positive ones where appropriate. GG. Challenge instead of problem. Opportunity instead of difficulty. Emphasize solutions over shortcomings. Think about the emotional tone you want to evoke: hope, inspiration, security, curiosity, and select words that resonate with that feeling. Always ensure your framing is truthful and reflective of the underlying reality. The power comes from highlighting truths, not obscuring them. So, the next time you craft a message, remember the subtle yet immense power of the framing effect. By thoughtfully choosing your words and the lens through which you present information, you don't just convey facts. You gently shape perceptions, evoke emotions, and guide minds towards a more positive and productive understanding, illuminating the path forward with your chosen light. Have you ever walked into a negotiation, or even a casual discussion about a price or an idea, and felt that the very first number or concept mentioned seemed to stubbornly stick in your mind, influencing all subsequent thoughts and counteroffers? It's as if an invisible weight has been dropped, subtly pulling all other considerations towards it, making it incredibly difficult to shift perspectives far from that initial point. This powerful, yet often unconscious, psychological trigger is called the anchoring bias. What if you could understand how this initial impression profoundly shapes perceptions and learn to strategically set beneficial anchors, or gently navigate those set by others, ensuring your message lands with the desired resonance, like a ship guiding its course by a lighthouse? This pervasive principle is known as the anchoring bias. It describes our human tendency to rely heavily on the first piece of information offered the anchor when making decisions, even if that information is irrelevant or arbitrary. Once an anchor is set, subsequent judgments and estimations are typically adjusted relative to that initial point, often insufficiently, meaning the initial anchor still holds significant sway. The mechanism behind the anchoring bias is rooted in how our brains process information and make estimations when faced with uncertainty. When confronted with an unknown value, our minds search for a reference point. The first number or concept presented serves as this initial reference, a mental anchor. Even if we consciously try to adjust away from it, our brains tend to stay anchored to it, making adjustments that are too small. This is partly due to selective accessibility. Once an anchor is set, our minds tend to retrieve information that is consistent with that anchor, making it feel more plausible. For instance, if an artificially high price is suggested, our minds start to consider reasons why that price might be reasonable, rather than immediately dismissing it. It's a cognitive shortcut that can lead us astray, but also one that can be leveraged with intention. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. In a sales negotiation, the first party to state a price often sets the anchor for the entire negotiation, even if their initial offer is far from the true market value. Real estate agents might show you an overpriced anchor house first, making subsequent, more reasonably priced homes seem like a fantastic deal. Restaurant menus often feature a very expensive dish at the top, making other, still costly, items seem more affordable by comparison. During a salary negotiation, the first number mentioned, whether by the employer or the candidate, can significantly influence the final offer. Even in everyday discussions, if someone brings up a particularly extreme viewpoint first, subsequent opinions, even moderate ones, might seem less radical by contrast. Conversely, if you allow someone else to set an unfavorable anchor, you might find yourself constantly fighting uphill, trying to pull the conversation away from their initial, biased starting point. The profound impact of understanding the anchoring bias is that it empowers you to strategically influence perception and guide outcomes in your favor, or to wisely navigate others' attempts to anchor you. For self-development, it makes you keenly aware of how initial information can subtly sway your own judgments, enabling you to pause, reflect, and seek external data before committing. It teaches you the importance of careful preparation and thoughtful communication when introducing numbers, ideas, or expectations. When you can consciously set a beneficial anchor, you can influence negotiations, proposals, and even the perception of your own value, while also protecting yourself from being unfairly anchored by others. It's about taking thoughtful control of the initial narrative. To gently and ethically apply the principle of anchoring, focus on strategically and thoughtfully introducing the first relevant number or concept. This isn't about deception, but about framing your desired outcome effectively. For example, if you are proposing a budget, consider starting with a slightly higher, yet still justifiable, figure to set an initial high anchor, leaving room for negotiation. When discussing project timelines, perhaps mention a slightly longer, more comfortable deadline as a starting point. Frame your anchor with justification. Don't just throw out a number. Provide a brief, logical reason for it, even if it's broad. This makes the anchor more credible. Be mindful of the context. The anchor should not be so extreme that it's dismissed outright, but rather within a believable range that still stretches perception. When facing an anchor set by someone else, re-anchor the conversation by introducing a new, more favorable starting point, backed by your own rationale, rather than simply negotiating against their initial figure. So, the next time you step into a conversation where numbers or initial ideas matter, remember the profound influence of the anchoring bias. By thoughtfully and ethically setting your initial impression, you don't just communicate, you subtly guide the entire landscape of perception, ensuring your message begins its journey from a position of strength and strategic advantage. Have you ever found yourself clutching onto something you already possess with surprising tenacity, even if its value seems questionable, or rushing to secure an opportunity simply because you fear it might disappear forever? It's a powerful human instinct, isn't it? The pain of losing something, whether it's an object, a chance, or even a perceived benefit, often feels far more intense than the joy of gaining something of equal value. This deep-seated psychological trigger is known as loss aversion. What if you could understand this profound human inclination and learn to communicate in a way that emphasizes what could be lost? Not in a fear-mongering way, but to truly highlight the immense value of your message and encourage thoughtful action, like a beacon warning of a fading light. This fundamental principle is known as loss aversion. It is a cognitive bias where individuals prefer avoiding losses to acquiring equivalent gains. In simpler terms, the psychological impact of losing something is approximately twice as powerful as the psychological impact of gaining something of the same magnitude. This means we are more motivated by the prospect of preventing a loss than by the prospect of achieving a gain. The mechanism behind loss aversion is deeply embedded in our evolutionary wiring and neurological responses. From an evolutionary standpoint, avoiding threats and preserving resources was crucial for survival. Thus, our brains developed a stronger sensitivity to potential losses. Neurologically, the brain regions associated with fear and negative emotions, such as the amygdala, show increased activity when faced with potential losses, leading to a stronger avoidance response. This inherent sensitivity means that when presented with a choice, our minds often prioritize protecting what we already have or what we perceive we could have, rather than striving for something new. It's a powerful defensive mechanism that can be a strong motivator. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. Insurance companies effectively leverage loss aversion by highlighting the potential financial ruin or suffering that could occur without their coverage, rather than just the peace of mind it offers. Security systems are marketed not just for safety, but to prevent the loss of possessions. Limited-time sales and last chance offers in retail activate loss aversion. You might miss out on a good deal. Health campaigns often emphasize the negative consequences of unhealthy behaviors, e.g., smoking kills, risk of heart disease, more than the positive benefits of healthy ones. In a negotiation, focusing on what the other party stands to lose if they don't agree, g. Losing a valuable partnership. Missing a deadline can be more persuasive than highlighting what they stand to gain. Conversely, if you only focus on the positive gains of your proposal, you might underestimate the powerful psychological barrier of potential losses that the other party perceives. The profound impact of understanding loss aversion is that it allows you to craft messages that powerfully convey urgency and value, driving thoughtful consideration and action. For self-development, it empowers you to recognize when your own fear of loss might be holding you back from taking beneficial risks or embracing new opportunities. It also helps you understand why resistance to change is so strong. People often perceive change as a loss of the familiar, even if the new state offers greater benefits. When you ethically leverage loss aversion, you can highlight the genuine risks of inaction or the fading opportunity, encouraging others to protect their well-being, seize valuable chances, and make informed decisions that prevent detrimental outcomes. To gently and ethically apply the principle of loss aversion, focus on framing your message in terms of what could be forfeited or missed out on, rather than solely on what could be gained. This isn't about creating undue fear, but about emphasizing the preciousness of the opportunity or the genuine consequence of inaction. For example, instead of saying, "You'll gain convenience with this new software," you might say, "Without this software, you risk losing valuable time and efficiency each day." When proposing a solution, illustrate the problems or challenges that will persist or worsen if your solution isn't adopted. Use phrases that hint at fading opportunities such as, "Don't miss out," "This exclusive chance will disappear," or "Act now before it's too late," but only when truly applicable. Always ensure that the potential loss you highlight is genuine and proportionate to the value of your message. Exaggeration or false threats will undermine trust and be counterproductive. So, the next time you wish for your message to truly spur action and emphasize its critical importance, remember the powerful pull of loss aversion. By thoughtfully and ethically highlighting what might be lost through inaction, you don't just communicate, you awaken a deeper urgency, guiding individuals to protect their interests and seize opportunities before they fade into the realm of what could have been. Have you ever found yourself drawn to a new trend, a popular movie, or even a particular political candidate, simply because it seems like everyone else is doing it or supporting it? It's a powerful, almost unconscious gravitational pull, isn't it? The sheer weight of widespread adoption or belief can make an idea or a product seem instantly more appealing, more valid, and more trustworthy, almost as if the sheer number of adherents imbues it with an undeniable truth. This pervasive psychological trigger is known as the bandwagon effect. What if you could understand how people are swayed by the perceived popularity of an idea and learn to gently guide them into the current of collective belief? fostering a sense of belonging and encouraging them to join a positive movement, like a harmonious choir drawing in new voices. This compelling principle is known as the bandwagon effect. It describes the tendency for people to adopt a certain behavior, belief, or style because everyone else is doing it. As more people come to believe in something, others also hop on the bandwagon, regardless of the underlying evidence, simply because of its increasing popularity. It's a form of social proof, but specifically focused on the growing momentum and widespread acceptance of an idea or action. The mechanism behind the bandwagon effect is deeply rooted in our social nature and cognitive shortcuts. From an evolutionary perspective, conforming to the group often increased safety and acceptance, making us less likely to be ostracized. Neurologically, being part of a popular trend can trigger feelings of belonging and social validation, which are inherently rewarding. Our brains use the popularity of an idea as a heuristic, a mental shortcut, to assume its correctness or desirability. If everyone else is doing it, it must be the right thing to do, or at least a safe choice. There's also a fear of missing out, FOMO, or being left behind, which fuels the desire to join what appears to be a successful or desirable movement. It's a powerful combination of the desire for acceptance and the comfort of certainty derived from collective action. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. Fashion trends explode because people see others wearing certain styles. Blockbuster movies gain even more traction simply because they're the biggest movie of the year. Political candidates often emphasize their rising poll numbers to create a sense of inevitable victory and encourage undecided voters to join the winning side. Social media platforms thrive on the bandwagon effect, where viral content spreads because more and more people are sharing and engaging with it. In a business context, highlighting how many industry leaders are adopting a new technology or strategy can sway hesitant companies. Even in daily discussions, if you're trying to convince a friend to try a new restaurant, mentioning that everyone at work is raving about it can be far more persuasive than listing its specific menu items. Conversely, a brilliant idea that lacks initial traction can struggle to gain acceptance, precisely because it lacks the visible support of a growing crowd. The profound impact of understanding the bandwagon effect is that it allows you to build powerful momentum and accelerate the adoption of positive ideas or behaviors. For self-development, it makes you critically aware of how susceptible you might be to popular opinion, encouraging you to develop independent thought and verify information rather than blindly following trends. It also teaches you the power of demonstrating growing support for your own initiatives, whether it's a new project, a charitable cause, or a personal transformation journey. When you can genuinely show that a positive movement is gaining traction, you can inspire others to join, fostering a sense of collective purpose and accelerating positive change. To gently and ethically apply the principle of the bandwagon effect, focus on authentically showcasing growth, popularity, and collective endorsement. This isn't about fabricating numbers, but about truthfully highlighting existing momentum. For example, when launching a new initiative, share early success stories or express enthusiasm about the growing number of participants. If you've received significant positive feedback, quantify it over 500 positive comments. Use phrases that imply widespread adoption or acceptance, such as, "A growing number of people are discovering," "It's quickly becoming popular among," or "Join the movement that is sweeping across." If relevant, highlight reputable groups or influential figures who are already on board. Always ensure your claims of popularity are genuine and verifiable, as misrepresentation will quickly erode trust and be counterproductive. So, the next time you wish for your message to gain widespread acceptance and inspire collective action, remember the comforting pull of the bandwagon effect. By thoughtfully and ethically demonstrating the growing popularity and positive momentum of your ideas, you don't just communicate, you invite others to join a thriving current, fostering a powerful sense of belonging and accelerating the journey toward shared success. Have you ever walked into a room and felt a certain mood? A subtle undercurrent that seemed to subtly shape your thoughts or even your behavior without you consciously realizing why. Or perhaps you've noticed how certain words or images can subtly predispose you to think or act in a particular way, even if those words aren't directly related to your current task. It's a fascinating and often unseen psychological phenomenon. This ability of seemingly unrelated stimuli to prepare our minds for subsequent thoughts and actions. What if you could understand the subtle power of priming and learn to gently influence minds? Not through overt persuasion, but by subtly preparing the cognitive ground, ensuring your message lands on fertile soil, like a skilled gardener, enriching the earth before planting. This powerful principle is known as priming. In psychology, priming is a phenomenon whereby exposure to one stimulus influences a response to a subsequent stimulus, without conscious guidance or intention. It's like setting the stage in someone's mind, making certain concepts, ideas, or even emotional states more accessible and ready for use when related information is later presented. The mechanism behind priming is deeply rooted in how our brains organize and retrieve information through associative networks. Our minds are vast webs of interconnected ideas, memories, and emotions. When one concept is activated primed, related concepts in that network become temporarily more accessible. For instance, if you hear the word doctor, words like nurse, hospital, and sick become more readily available in your mind. This happens rapidly and often unconsciously. Neurologically, priming can involve the strengthening of neural pathways. Repeated exposure or recent activation of certain pathways makes it easier for subsequent, related information to travel along those same paths, influencing perception, decision-making, and even behavior. It's about activating dormant or less accessible mental constructs, making them forefront in the mind's working memory. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. If you're shown images of money before a negotiation, you might become more competitive and self-interested. If a waiting room has pictures of nature scenes, patients might report feeling calmer. In a marketing context, using words like speed or efficiency in ad copy can prime customers to value those attributes more when evaluating a product. Restaurant music can prime diners. Classical music might lead to ordering more expensive wines, while pop music might encourage faster turnover. Even in daily conversations, if you start a discussion about creativity, people are more likely to offer innovative solutions later in the conversation. Conversely, if you inadvertently prime negative concepts, e.g., failure, difficulty at the outset, you might unconsciously create a more pessimistic or resistant mental environment for your message. The profound impact of understanding priming is that it allows you to subtly shape the mental landscape, making your audience more receptive to your core message and desired outcomes. For self-development, it makes you acutely aware of the subtle influences in your environment and communication. empowering you to consciously choose what you expose yourself to and what kind of mental environment you cultivate for your own thoughts. It teaches you that influencing others isn't always about overt persuasion. Sometimes, it's about preparing the mind. When you can ethically and gently prime positive concepts, you can foster a more open, constructive, or creative mindset, paving the way for your message to be received with greater understanding and positive action. To gently and ethically apply the principle of priming. Focus on subtly introducing concepts, words, or imagery that align with the desired emotional state or cognitive frame for your audience. This isn't about manipulation, but about creating an optimal mental environment. For example, before presenting a solution, you might briefly mention a related success story or a positive trend to prime optimism. If you want to encourage collaboration, use cooperative language at the beginning of your discussion, working together, shared goals. Use visual cues, a calming background color in a presentation, or an inspiring image in a social media post can prime positive emotions. Choose your opening words carefully. The initial sentences of your email, presentation, or conversation can prime the entire tone and direction. Always ensure that your priming is subtle and natural, not obvious or intrusive, and that it supports your genuine, positive intentions. The goal is to gently guide, not overtly control. So, the next time you prepare to communicate, remember the subtle yet profound power of priming. By thoughtfully and ethically preparing the cognitive ground with relevant concepts and positive associations, you don't just convey information, you subtly influence the very lens through which your message is viewed, ensuring it lands on fertile ground, ready to blossom into understanding and action. Have you ever walked into a room where everyone was laughing and found yourself smiling, even before you knew why? Or felt a sudden pang of anxiety just by being around someone who was visibly stressed, their tensions subtly seeping into your own being? It's a remarkable and often unconscious phenomenon. This ability of emotions to spread from person to person, shaping the very atmosphere of an interaction without a single word being spoken about feelings. This powerful, yet often invisible, psychological trigger is called emotional contagion. What if you could understand how emotions can spread like wildfire and learn to gently cultivate and transmit positive emotional states, fostering an environment of warmth, hope, and inspiration, like a guiding light illuminating a shared path? This fundamental principle is known as emotional contagion. It is the tendency to feel and express emotions similar to those of others. It's a rapid and automatic process where individuals unconsciously catch the emotions of those around them, mirroring their expressions, postures, and vocalizations, which in turn triggers corresponding emotional states within themselves. It happens without conscious effort or awareness, making it a powerful force in social dynamics. The mechanism behind emotional contagion is deeply rooted in our empathic capabilities and mirror neuron systems. As we discussed with mirroring, our brains are wired to simulate the experiences of others. When we observe someone expressing an emotion, smiling, frowning, speaking in an excited tone, our mirror neurons fire as if we were experiencing that emotion ourselves. This internal simulation then triggers a physiological and emotional response in our own bodies. For instance, seeing someone smile can activate our own facial muscles associated with smiling, which in turn can lead to us actually feeling happier. This process is often rapid and precognitive, meaning it happens before conscious thought. It's a primal form of empathy that allows us to quickly attune to the emotional state of those around us, fostering social cohesion or alerting us to potential threats. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. A charismatic leader's enthusiasm can quickly inspire a team. A single person's anxiety in a group can make everyone feel subtly uneasy. Customer service representatives are often trained to maintain a positive demeanor because their positive emotions can contagiously improve the customer's mood. Public speakers who genuinely convey passion or excitement often find their audience becoming more engaged and energized. Even in personal interactions, if you approach a difficult conversation with calm and understanding, you are more likely to de-escalate tension and foster a constructive dialogue. Conversely, if you enter a situation with frustration or negativity, you might inadvertently spread that feeling, making productive communication much harder. The profound impact of understanding emotional contagion is that it empowers you to consciously manage your own emotional state and powerfully influence the emotional climate of any interaction. For self-development, it makes you acutely aware of the powerful influence your own emotions have on others, encouraging you to cultivate inner calm, optimism, and genuine warmth. It teaches you that your emotional presence is a form of communication as potent as your words. When you can consciously choose to embody and project positive emotions, such as calm, enthusiasm, empathy, or hope, you can transform the very atmosphere of a conversation, fostering greater connection, openness, and receptivity. Like a warm embrace for the soul, to gently and ethically apply the principle of emotional contagion. Focus on cultivating and genuinely projecting the positive emotions you wish to see in others. This isn't about faking feelings, but about practicing emotional self-awareness and intentionality. For example, before a crucial meeting, take a moment to center yourself and consciously bring a sense of calm and openness. When engaging with someone, express genuine enthusiasm for their ideas or authentic empathy for their challenges. Use your nonverbal cues intentionally. A warm smile, open body language, steady eye contact, and a modulated, pleasant vocal tone can all transmit positive feelings. Be mindful of your initial emotional state as you enter any interaction, recognizing that it can set the tone for the entire exchange. And remember, while you can influence, you cannot control others' emotions. The goal is to gently invite, not to force. So, the next time you step into a conversation, a meeting, or any social gathering, remember the subtle yet immense power of emotional contagion. By consciously choosing to embody and gently project positive emotions, you don't just communicate, you spread a healing melody, fostering an environment of shared warmth, understanding, and inspiration that elevates every interaction and nurtures positive emotions in all those around you. Have you ever found yourself developing a fondness for a song after hearing it a few times? Even if you didn't particularly like it initially. Or perhaps you've noticed how a new acquaintance seems to become more approachable and likable simply after repeated casual encounters. Even without deep conversation, it's a subtle but powerful phenomenon. This quiet way, our brains develop preferences based on nothing more than repeated exposure. This pervasive, yet often unconscious, psychological trigger is known as the mere exposure effect. What if you could understand how simple familiarity can breed liking and learn to gently increase positive feelings and acceptance for your message, allowing it to become a comforting and welcome presence, like a familiar, cherished melody. This compelling principle is known as the mere exposure effect, sometimes referred to as the familiarity principle. It states that people tend to develop a preference for things or people merely because they are familiar with them. The more often we are exposed to a neutral or positive stimulus, the more we tend to like it, even without any conscious interaction or evaluation. The mechanism behind the mere exposure effect is deeply rooted in our cognitive processing and evolutionary safety mechanisms. Our brains generally prefer what is familiar and predictable. Unfamiliar stimuli often trigger a mild sense of caution or even threat. Repeated, safe exposure to a stimulus reduces this initial apprehension and increases processing fluency. It becomes easier for our brains to process and categorize the familiar. This ease of processing is intrinsically rewarding and is often interpreted as a positive feeling or preference. Neurologically, familiarity can reduce the activation of the amygdala, associated with fear, and increase activity in regions associated with pleasure and positive affect. It's a fundamental cognitive shortcut. What is familiar is often perceived as safe, trustworthy, and good. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. Advertising campaigns rely heavily on the mere exposure effect, repeatedly showing logos or product images, even without much information, to increase brand familiarity and preference. Political candidates gain an advantage simply by having their names and faces appear frequently in media, making them seem more trustworthy to voters. In music, a song often grows on you after multiple listens, even in professional settings. Simply having your name consistently appear in emails, reports, or meeting agendas in a positive context can subtly increase your perceived credibility and influence over time. Conversely, a brilliant idea or a highly qualified individual might be overlooked simply because they lack sufficient exposure and therefore don't feel familiar or safe to others. The profound impact of understanding the mere exposure effect is that it allows you to build gradual acceptance and foster a sense of comfort around your ideas, presence, or brand. For self-development, it encourages you to understand the power of consistent, positive presence in your interactions and personal branding. It also makes you aware of how easily your own preferences can be shaped by repeated exposure, prompting you to seek out diverse information and perspectives rather than just passively accepting what's most familiar. When you ethically leverage this principle, you can create a gentle, steady path for your message to become accepted and even cherished, like a comforting, recurring theme in someone's life. To gently and ethically apply the principle of mere exposure, focus on consistent, positive, and non-intrusive presence. This isn't about bombarding people, but about gentle, repeated engagement. For example, if you have a new idea, introduce it briefly in various conversations over time, rather than unveiling it all at once. For content creators, consistent posting and engagement, even if some content is short, keeps you present in your audience's mind. Maintain a consistent visual and auditory identity. Your branding, your vocal tone, so that it becomes recognizable and comforting over time. Be present in relevant spaces. Regularly attend meetings, contribute to discussions, or share insights in channels where your audience is active. The key is to be a consistently positive and familiar presence, allowing that familiarity to subtly build warmth and acceptance. Always ensure your repeated exposure is genuinely positive or neutral. Negative exposure will, of course, breed dislike. So, the next time you wish for your message, your presence, or your ideas to truly take root and be embraced with warmth. Remember the gentle power of the mere exposure effect. By thoughtfully and consistently presenting yourself and your insights in a positive light, you don't just communicate, you cultivate a comforting familiarity that blossoms into genuine liking and lasting acceptance. Like a quiet, comforting friendship. Have you ever found yourself completely engrossed by a speaker? Not because of complex data or logical arguments, but because they simply told a compelling story. Perhaps you've noticed how certain ideas, when wrapped in a narrative, linger in your mind long after a conversation ends, touching your heart in a way that facts alone rarely can. This ancient, universal human practice of weaving tales is one of the most powerful and deeply ingrained psychological triggers in communication. What if you could understand the profound art of storytelling and learn to weave narratives that bypass logical defenses, directly touch the heart, and make your message truly unforgettable, like an echo that lingers in the soul? This timeless and deeply human principle is storytelling. It's the art of communicating ideas, experiences, and information through narrative, complete with characters, plot, conflict, and resolution. Unlike a dry recitation of facts, a well-told story transforms abstract concepts into relatable human experiences, making them vivid, memorable, and emotionally resonant. The mechanism behind storytelling is deeply rooted in how our brains are wired for narrative. From a neurological perspective, when we hear a story, our brains become far more active than when we process facts. Research shows that listening to a story activates not only the language processing centers, but also areas of the brain associated with the actions and sensations described in the story, known as neural coupling. For example, if a story talks about running, our motor cortex might light up. This means we don't just hear the story, we experience it, creating a deep empathic connection. Stories also trigger the release of oxytocin, the bonding hormone, fostering trust and empathy, and dopamine, the reward chemical, making the story engaging and memorable. Furthermore, stories provide context and meaning, making complex information easier to understand and remember than isolated data points. They bypass our logical defenses, appealing directly to our emotions and values. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. TED Talk speakers are masters of storytelling, often beginning with a personal anecdote to illustrate a broader point. Brand marketing often focuses on the story of the product, its origin, the problem it solves, the transformation it offers, rather than just its features. Political speeches often include personal narratives or testimonials to connect with voters on an emotional level. Therapists use narrative therapy to help clients reframe their life stories. Even in daily interactions, sharing a personal experience related to your advice makes it far more impactful and memorable than simply stating a recommendation. Conversely, imagine trying to inspire someone with only statistics and bullet points. While factual, it lacks the emotional depth and memorability that a well-crafted story provides. The profound impact of understanding storytelling is that it allows you to connect with your audience on a deep emotional level, making your message truly unforgettable and inspiring genuine action. For self-development, it encourages you to view your own experiences as valuable narratives, helping you articulate your journey, your insights, and your purpose with greater clarity and passion. It teaches you that the most powerful communication doesn't just inform, it transforms by inviting listeners into a shared human experience. When you can weave compelling narratives, your words become more than just information. They become seeds of understanding, hope, and inspiration, leaving a lasting imprint on the souls of your listeners. To gently and ethically apply the power of storytelling, focus on crafting narratives that are authentic, relatable, and have a clear purpose. This isn't about fabricating tales, but about finding the inherent story in your message or experience. For example, when explaining a complex concept, start with a relatable scenario or a personal journey that led to your understanding. Identify the core message you want to convey, and then build a narrative around it that illustrates that message. Introduce a relatable character. It could be yourself, a hypothetical person, or an object personified and a challenge or conflict they face, leading to a resolution or insight. Use vivid imagery and sensory details to make your story come alive in the listener's mind. Vary your vocal tone and pace to match the emotional arc of your narrative. Remember, the story serves the message. It's not just entertainment, but a powerful vehicle for deeper understanding. So, the next time you wish for your message to truly resonate and leave an indelible mark, remember the ancient, profound art of storytelling. By weaving narratives that are authentic, emotionally resonant, and purposeful, you don't just communicate, you invite listeners on a transformative journey, touching their hearts and minds, and making your insights a cherished part of their own unfolding story. Have you ever found yourself unable to stop thinking about a task you started but didn't finish? Or a cliffhanger at the end of a TV show that keeps you eagerly awaiting the next episode? It's a subtle yet persistent mental tug, isn't it? This powerful psychological phenomenon makes incomplete activities more memorable and creates a nagging sense of anticipation, urging us towards closure. This often unconscious trigger is known as the Zeigarnik effect. What if you could understand the magnetic pull of unfinished business and learn to gently create a compelling sense of curiosity and engagement, drawing your audience deeper into your message, like a captivating mystery that demands to be solved? This intriguing principle is known as the Zeigarnik effect, named after Soviet psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik. Her research showed that people tend to remember incomplete or interrupted tasks better than completed ones. This effect occurs because an unfinished task creates a state of psychological tension, a cognitive itch that our minds instinctively try to scratch by revisiting and recalling the task until it's brought to completion. The mechanism behind the Zeigarnik effect is rooted in our brain's natural inclination towards closure and problem solving. When we begin a task or are presented with an open loop, our working memory holds on to the related information, creating a state of sustained cognitive arousal. This unclosed loop generates a form of psychological discomfort or tension, which motivates us to seek resolution and completion. Neurologically, it's thought that the brain maintains an active cognitive representation of the unfinished task, keeping it readily accessible for further processing. This innate drive for completion makes us more attentive, curious, and persistent when faced with something left unresolved. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. TV series use cliffhangers at the end of episodes to ensure viewers return. Online quizzes often show you a progress bar, signaling that you've only completed part of the process, encouraging you to finish. Marketing campaigns sometimes reveal information in stages, or run teaser campaigns to build anticipation. Educators might pose a compelling question at the beginning of a lesson and promise to reveal the answer later. keeping students engaged. In a sales context, hinting at a crucial piece of information that will be revealed at the end of our discussion can keep a client interested. Conversely, if you present all information up front and leave no room for curiosity or anticipation, your audience might quickly lose interest because there's no psychological tension to maintain their engagement. The profound impact of understanding the Zeigarnik effect is that it allows you to create powerful hooks and maintain sustained engagement with your audience, drawing them deeper into your message. For self-development, it makes you aware of how unfinished tasks can create mental clutter, encouraging you to seek completion or consciously compartmentalize. It also teaches you the power of anticipation and the strategic release of information, recognizing that sometimes holding back a small piece of the puzzle can be more engaging than revealing everything at once. When you ethically leverage this principle, you can foster curiosity, encourage active participation, and ensure your message becomes a compelling journey that leaves your audience eager for more. To gently and ethically apply the Zeigarnik effect, focus on creating intentional open loops that pique curiosity and promise future resolution. This isn't about withholding vital information, but about structuring your communication to build anticipation. For example, at the beginning of a presentation, state a compelling question that your content will answer later. In a video or podcast, hint at a surprising revelation that will come in a later segment. Use phrases that create anticipation, such as, "You'll discover the secret to this later, but there's one crucial piece of the puzzle we haven't touched on yet." Or, "Hold that thought." Break down complex information into stages, allowing your audience to feel they're progressing, but still have more to learn. Always ensure that you do eventually provide the promised resolution. Failing to close the loop will lead to frustration, not engagement. So, the next time you wish for your message to truly captivate and hold attention, remember the persistent power of the Zeigarnik effect. By thoughtfully and ethically creating intriguing open loops and promising future revelations, you don't just communicate, you weave a captivating narrative that draws your audience deeper into your world, transforming your message into an irresistible journey that demands completion. Section 18. The Contrast Principle. Highlighting differences for impact. Have you ever noticed how a moderately expensive item seems much cheaper when placed next to something exorbitantly priced? Or how a slightly challenging task feels far more manageable after you've just tackled something truly daunting? It's a powerful perceptual trick, isn't it? This fundamental psychological trigger makes us perceive things differently, depending on what they are compared to, subtly shifting our judgments and preferences. What if you could understand the profound influence of the contrast principle and learn to highlight differences strategically, making your message or proposal stand out with compelling impact? Like a single bright star against the night sky, this compelling principle is known as the contrast principle. It states that when two items are presented one after another, the second item is perceived as more different from the first than it actually is, especially if the first item is an extreme. In essence, our perception of something is heavily influenced by what came immediately before it. The mechanism behind the contrast principle is rooted in how our brains process information comparatively, rather than in absolute terms. Our sensory and cognitive systems are designed to detect change and differences. When we experience two stimuli in sequence, our minds naturally engage in a rapid comparison. This comparison can distort our perception of the second stimulus, making it seem either much better or much worse, much larger or much smaller. much more expensive, or much cheaper, depending on the nature of the first stimulus. It's a cognitive shortcut that allows us to make quick relative judgments, but it can also be exploited. For example, if you lift a light object immediately after a heavy one, the light object will feel even lighter than it is. This is a powerful, automatic perceptual bias. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. Clothing stores often display their most expensive suits or dresses at the front, not necessarily expecting to sell them all, but to make the moderately priced items seem more affordable by comparison. Car salespeople might first show you a heavily loaded, high-priced model, making a subsequent, more basic model seem like a bargain. Charities sometimes ask for a large, seemingly unreasonable donation first, knowing it makes a smaller, still substantial request seem more palatable. In a job interview, if you discuss a highly complex and demanding project you managed, subsequent, less challenging achievements might still seem impressive due to the contrast. Conversely, if you present a valuable idea after a truly brilliant one, your idea might be unconsciously diminished simply due to the unfavorable contrast, even if it's excellent on its own merits. The profound impact of understanding the contrast principle is that it empowers you to strategically present options and information to highlight the desired advantages of your message. For self-development, it makes you acutely aware of how your own judgments can be swayed by the order in which information is presented, encouraging you to evaluate things in isolation before making comparisons. It also teaches you the art of strategic sequencing in your communication. When you ethically leverage this principle, you can make your solutions appear more appealing, your prices seem more reasonable, or your ideas seem more impactful, simply by choosing the right comparison point, guiding your audience towards a more favorable perception. To gently and ethically apply the principle of contrast, focus on deliberately sequencing the information you present to create a beneficial comparison. This isn't about deception, but about emphasizing value through context. For example, when presenting a solution, first briefly describe the significant problems or challenges it overcomes, the before state, to highlight the positive contrast of your after solution. If you are offering a service, consider mentioning the cost of a much more expensive alternative or the potential costs of inaction before presenting your reasonable fee. Present the less desirable option first, then the more desirable one. This makes the second option look even better. Use vivid descriptions of the contrasting elements. Make the bad or hard comparison clear enough to emphasize the good or easy solution. Always ensure that the comparisons you draw are genuine and relevant. False contrasts will quickly be detected and undermine your credibility. So, the next time you wish for your message or proposal to truly shine and be perceived favorably, remember the powerful influence of the contrast principle. By thoughtfully and ethically highlighting differences, you don't just present information, you shape perception, making your desired outcome stand out with compelling clarity and irresistible appeal, guiding your audience to see the true value in what you offer. Have you ever noticed how easily we find evidence that supports what we already believe, while dismissing or overlooking information that contradicts our existing views? It's a powerful and often unconscious mental filter, isn't it? Our minds seem to selectively gather, interpret, and recall information in a way that confirms our pre-existing notions, creating a self-reinforcing echo chamber of thought. This deeply ingrained psychological trigger is known as confirmation bias. What if you could understand this pervasive human tendency and learn to gently navigate it, either by reinforcing positive, healthy beliefs or by subtly broadening perspectives in a way that feels safe and understandable, like a gentle current guiding a ship through familiar waters. This fundamental principle is known as confirmation bias. It describes our tendency to seek out, interpret, favor, and recall information in a way that confirms our prior beliefs or hypotheses. Instead of objectively processing all incoming information, we unconsciously filter it to match what we already think is true, even if those beliefs are inaccurate. The mechanism behind confirmation bias is rooted in our brain's desire for cognitive consistency and efficiency. Our minds prefer to avoid the discomfort of cognitive dissonance holding conflicting beliefs and the mental effort required to update deeply held views. When new information aligns with existing beliefs, it's processed quickly and easily, reinforcing the neural pathways already in place. When it contradicts them, it requires more mental energy to process, and our brains often find ways to discount, reinterpret, or ignore it. This bias helps us maintain a stable view of the world and our place in it, but it can also make us resistant to new ideas and critical thinking. It's a powerful defense mechanism that protects our existing mental models. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. People tend to follow news sources that align with their political views, reinforcing their existing opinions. Investors often focus on information that supports their investment choices, overlooking contrary signals. In a team meeting, individuals may selectively remember parts of a discussion that support their initial proposal, while forgetting counter-arguments. When someone holds a strong stereotype, they are more likely to notice and remember behaviors that fit that stereotype, even if they are infrequent. Conversely, if you present information that directly challenges someone's deeply held belief without first acknowledging their perspective, you're likely to encounter strong resistance, as their confirmation bias will immediately work to dismiss your input. The profound impact of understanding confirmation bias is that it allows you to anticipate resistance to new ideas and strategically frame your message to either reinforce beneficial beliefs or gently introduce alternative perspectives. For self-development, it makes you acutely aware of your own mental filters, empowering you to actively seek out diverse viewpoints and critically evaluate your own assumptions. It teaches you the importance of understanding your audience's existing beliefs before attempting to introduce new ones. When you ethically leverage this principle, you can build rapport by first validating existing truths, and then, if necessary, gently expand horizons, nurturing growth without triggering strong defensive reactions, to gently and ethically navigate confirmation bias. Focus on affirming common ground before introducing new ideas, or by strategically providing validating information for positive beliefs. This isn't about manipulation, but about meeting people where they are mentally. For example, if you want to introduce a new strategy, start by acknowledging the value and success of current methods. Then present your new idea as an enhancement or a natural evolution, rather than a complete replacement. If you are trying to help someone overcome a limiting belief, first validate the part of their experience that led to that belief. Then gently introduce a new perspective that accounts for their experience while offering a different conclusion. Frame new information as an extension of existing knowledge, rather than a contradiction. Ask open-ended questions that encourage self-discovery, allowing individuals to discover the new idea themselves, which makes it less threatening and more easily integrated into their existing belief system. Always ensure your approach is respectful of their current worldview and builds upon it, rather than dismantling it. So, the next time you wish for your message to truly resonate and be accepted, remember the subtle yet powerful filter of confirmation bias. By thoughtfully and ethically acknowledging existing beliefs, and then gently guiding towards new insights through affirmation and subtle expansion, you don't just communicate. You help individuals integrate new understanding into their existing framework, fostering genuine growth and a profound shift in perception. Have you ever found yourself deliberating between two options, only for a third, seemingly less attractive choice to suddenly appear and make one of the original two seem undeniably superior? It's a clever psychological trick, isn't it? This subtle manipulation of our decision-making process, often employed in marketing and sales, can powerfully nudge our preferences without us even realizing why. This intriguing psychological trigger is known as the decoy effect. What if you could understand how introducing a strategically inferior third option can make one of your original choices appear far more appealing, gently guiding individuals towards your preferred outcome, like a lighthouse illuminating the safest harbor? This fascinating principle is known as the decoy effect, sometimes called the asymmetric dominance effect. It occurs when people's preference for one option over another changes in the presence of a third option, the decoy that is asymmetrically dominated. An asymmetrically dominated option is inferior to one of the original options, the target, but not to the other, the competitor. And its primary purpose is to make the target option look more attractive. The mechanism behind the decoy effect is rooted in how our brains process relative comparisons and struggle with complex choices. When faced with two good but different options, decision-making can be difficult. The introduction of a decoy simplifies this choice by making one option, the target, clearly superior to the decoy, both in terms of value and sometimes even price. This provides a clear, easy-to-justify reason to choose the target, making it seem like a no-brainer or a best value compared to the competitor. Our brains gravitate towards clear, dominant choices, and the decoy provides that clarity. It works by shifting our reference point and making one option stand out as a clear winner against at least one other option, even if it's not the absolute best value. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. A classic example is subscription pricing. A magazine might offer an online-only subscription for $59, a print-only subscription for $125, and a print and online bundle for $125. The print-only option is the decoy. No one wants it over the bundle at the same price. Its sole purpose is to make the print and online bundle, the target, look like an incredible deal compared to the online-only option, the competitor. In coffee shops, a small coffee for $3 and a large for $5 might be joined by a medium for $4.50. The decoy, making the large seem like a better value. In a job offer, presenting a slightly less attractive but still functional benefits package as a decoy can make the main, preferred package seem more desirable. Conversely, if you only present two options that are both good but different, your audience might experience decision paralysis, making it harder for them to choose at all. The profound impact of understanding the decoy effect is that it allows you to ethically guide choices and highlight the superior value of your preferred option without overt persuasion. For self-development, it makes you incredibly astute at recognizing when your own choices are being influenced by a decoy, empowering you to make more independent and rational decisions. It teaches you the subtle power of choice architecture, how the presentation of options can significantly influence outcomes. When you ethically leverage this principle, You can make your most beneficial proposals or solutions stand out, helping your audience make decisions that are truly in their best interest by providing a clear and compelling comparison. To gently and ethically apply the principle of the decoy effect, focus on strategically designing your options to make your desired choice the asymmetrically dominant target. This isn't about deception, but about simplifying the decision-making process for your audience and clearly showcasing value. For example, when presenting a service, offer 3 tiers: a basic, a premium your target, and a slightly less appealing, slightly cheaper, or similarly priced but less feature-rich option your decoy that makes the premium tier shine. Ensure your decoy is genuinely inferior to the target in a clear, undeniable way, but not so inferior that it seems completely irrelevant. The decoy should make the target look like a clear win-win. Frame the options in a way that highlights the better value or smart choice of your target option. Always ensure that all options presented are legitimate and that you are not misleading your audience. The power of the decoy effect comes from revealing inherent value through comparison. So, the next time you present choices or proposals, remember the subtle yet powerful influence of the decoy effect. By thoughtfully and ethically introducing a strategic third option, you don't just communicate alternatives, you gently guide decisions, illuminating the path to your preferred outcome and helping your audience see the compelling value in what you truly want them to choose. Have you ever met someone incredibly charming and then, almost unconsciously, assumed they must also be highly intelligent, kind, and capable, even without much evidence? Or perhaps you've noticed how a product with beautiful packaging seems to inherently contain a higher quality item. Even before you've tried it, it's a remarkable cognitive shortcut, isn't it? This powerful psychological trigger makes a single positive trait cast a wide, favorable glow, influencing our overall perception of a person, a product, or even an idea. This often unconscious bias is known as the halo effect. What if you could understand how a single positive attribute can create an overall positive impression and learn to gently highlight your strengths, ensuring your message lands with an inherent sense of trust and appeal, like a radiant light illuminating your true essence? This compelling principle is known as the halo effect, a term coined by psychologist Edward Thorndike. It describes a cognitive bias where an observer's overall impression of a person, company, brand, or product influences the observer's feelings and thoughts about that entity's character or properties. Essentially, if we perceive one positive trait, we tend to generalize that positivity to other, unrelated traits. The mechanism behind the halo effect is rooted in our brain's tendency to simplify complex information and seek cognitive consistency. Rather than evaluating every single attribute independently, our minds create a unified, often generalized, impression. When we identify a strong positive characteristic, e.g., attractiveness, friendliness, intelligence, success, our brains apply that positive halo to other less known or even unseen attributes. This creates a mental shortcut that saves cognitive effort. Neurologically, this can involve the activation of existing positive schemas. Once one positive trait is recognized, related positive associations within our neural networks are more easily triggered, leading to a generally favorable outlook. It's a powerful shortcut that allows us to form quick judgments, though these judgments may not always be accurate. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. Physically attractive people are often perceived as more intelligent, sociable, and trustworthy. A company with a strong ethical reputation might be assumed to have high-quality products. Even if unrelated, Celebrities endorsing products leverage the halo effect. Their fame and likability transfer positively to the product. In a job interview, a candidate's confident handshake and articulate opening remarks can create a powerful initial halo, making the interviewer perceive their entire resume more favorably. During a presentation, clear, well-designed slides can create a halo of professionalism, making the content itself seem more credible. Conversely, a single negative trait, the horn effect, can cast an equally powerful negative shadow, making it difficult for an otherwise competent person or product to be perceived positively. The profound impact of understanding the halo effect is that it empowers you to strategically cultivate and present your most positive attributes, creating an overall impression of competence, trustworthiness, and appeal. For self-development, it makes you acutely aware of how you are perceived by others and encourages you to focus on developing genuine strengths that radiate positivity. It also helps you critically evaluate when your own judgments might be based on a superficial halo rather than objective evidence, prompting you to look beyond initial impressions. When you ethically leverage this principle, you can ensure your communication, your presence, and your offerings are seen through a positive lens, fostering greater receptivity, trust, and influence. To gently and ethically apply the principle of the halo effect, focus on identifying and consistently highlighting your genuine strengths or the most appealing attributes of your message you're offering. This isn't about superficiality, but about thoughtfully presenting your best self or your most compelling value. For example, before an important meeting, ensure your appearance is neat and professional, if applicable to the context. When introducing yourself, lead with your most relevant or impressive achievement. When presenting an idea, focus on its most groundbreaking or beneficial aspect first. Cultivate genuine positivity and approachability, a warm smile, genuine enthusiasm, and active listening can create a powerful liking halo that translates into broader positive perceptions. Consistency is key. Ensure that the positive traits you wish to highlight are consistently present in your behavior and communication. Reinforcing the positive impression, always ensure that the positive halo is built on genuine attributes. Inauthenticity will eventually be perceived. So, the next time you wish for your message to be received with an open mind and a favorable disposition, remember the subtle yet powerful influence of the halo effect. By thoughtfully and ethically cultivating and showcasing your genuine positive attributes, you don't just communicate, you radiate a compelling essence, ensuring your message is enveloped in trust, appeal, and a lasting sense of positive impression. Have you ever agreed to a tiny favor, so small it felt almost inconsequential, only to find yourself later agreeing to a much larger, more significant request that you might have initially resisted? It's a subtle but incredibly effective progression, isn't it? This powerful psychological trigger capitalizes on our deep-seated desire for consistency, gently leading us down a path of increasing commitment. This often unconscious, persuasive technique is known as the foot in the door technique. What if you could understand how securing small initial agreements can naturally lead to greater, more significant commitments, gently guiding others towards your larger vision? Like a quiet stream that eventually grows into a mighty river, this compelling principle is known as the foot in the door technique. It is a compliance strategy that involves getting a person to agree to a small request first, which then increases the likelihood of them agreeing to a second, larger request. The initial small commitment subtly alters the person's self-perception, making them feel more consistent with the identity of someone who supports the cause or idea, thus making them more likely to agree to subsequent, larger requests that align with this new self-image. The mechanism behind the foot in the door technique is rooted in the commitment and consistency principle we discussed earlier. Once an individual makes even a small, public, and voluntary commitment, they experience internal pressure to maintain consistency between their past actions and future behavior. Our brains strive to reduce cognitive dissonance. Agreeing to the first small request makes us see ourselves as the kind of person who is helpful or who supports a particular idea. To remain consistent with this newly formed self-image, we are more likely to agree to subsequent, larger requests that are congruent with that identity. It's a powerful internal nudge towards alignment. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. Charities often begin by asking for a small, easily agreeable action, like signing a petition for a cause, before later asking for a donation. Political campaigns might first ask you to place a small yard sign, then later ask you to volunteer for a larger role. Online businesses might offer a free trial or a tiny introductory purchase, knowing that once you've committed that small amount of time or money, you're more likely to upgrade to a full subscription or make a larger purchase. In a team setting, asking a colleague for a small piece of advice on a project can make them feel more invested and willing to contribute more substantially later. Even in personal relationships, asking a friend for a tiny favor can make them feel more connected and willing to help you out with something bigger down the line. Conversely, trying to jump straight to a large request without establishing any prior commitment often leads to immediate resistance or refusal. The profound impact of understanding the foot in the door technique is that it allows you to build momentum and gradually guide individuals towards significant positive actions and deeper engagement. For self-development, it makes you acutely aware of how small choices can lead to larger commitments, empowering you to consciously take initial steps towards your own goals and to recognize when others might be subtly influencing you. It teaches you the power of incremental progress and the gentle art of persuasion. When you ethically leverage this principle, you can foster cooperation, encourage participation, and inspire lasting change by building a foundation of small, positive agreements that naturally lead to more substantial and meaningful contributions. To gently and ethically apply the foot in the door technique, focus on designing genuinely small, easy to agree to initial requests that are logically consistent with your larger goal. This isn't about tricking anyone, but about creating an accessible entry point to a larger commitment. For example, if you want someone to volunteer for a major event, first ask if they'd be willing to simply receive information about it or attend a short informational meeting. If you're proposing a new idea at work, first ask for agreement on a foundational principle or a small low-risk test. Ensure the initial request is truly minimal and requires little effort or sacrifice. Make the initial commitment voluntary and active. The individual needs to choose to agree, even if it's a simple yes. The success of the second, larger request depends on its logical connection to the first and the person's internal desire for consistency. So, the next time you wish for your message to lead to substantial action and deeper commitment, remember the gentle yet powerful foot in the door technique. By thoughtfully and ethically inviting individuals into small, agreeable actions, you don't just communicate, you subtly cultivate a sense of ownership and consistency, naturally guiding them towards a larger vision and a more profound engagement. Like planting a tiny seed that grows into a flourishing commitment. Have you ever been presented with an outrageous request? One so large you immediately rejected it, only to then feel a surprising inclination to agree to a much smaller, more reasonable request that followed. It's a fascinating psychological dance, isn't it? This counterintuitive, persuasive technique relies on a subtle interplay of concession and the deeply ingrained human need for reciprocity. This often unconscious trigger is known as the door-in-the-face technique. What if you could understand how asking for a grand gesture first can make a more modest proposal seem far more appealing, gently guiding others towards your intended outcome? Like a skillful negotiator, carefully calibrating their offers. This intriguing principle is known as the door-in-the-face technique. It is a compliance method where a persuader attempts to convince the respondent to comply by making a large request that the respondent will most likely turn down. Much like slamming a door in the face, the respondent is then more likely to agree to a second, more reasonable request than if that same request had been made in isolation. The mechanism behind the door-in-the-face technique is primarily rooted in the reciprocity principle, but also involves the contrast principle. When the persuader makes a large initial request and then immediately concedes to a smaller one, that concession is perceived as a favor or a compromise. This triggers the powerful human tendency to reciprocate. We feel obligated to make a concession in return. Simultaneously, the large initial request acts as an anchor, as discussed earlier, and creates a stark contrast with the subsequent, smaller request, making the latter seem far more reasonable and manageable than it would on its own. It's a two-step process. The initial refusal makes the second request appear like a significant concession on the part of the requester, which then triggers a reciprocal concession from the target. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. A teenager asks their parents for $200 for a new video game, knowing they'll say no, then immediately asks for $20 for a movie ticket, which now seems very reasonable. A salesperson might start by offering a premium, high-priced package that they expect you to reject, then quickly pivot to a standard package that suddenly feels like a good deal. Charities sometimes ask for a significant commitment, volunteering 20 hours a week, get rejected, and then ask for a smaller, still valuable commitment to a one-time donation of $50. In a negotiation, an initial, intentionally high demand from one party can make their subsequent, slightly lower demand seem like a generous compromise. Conversely, if you only make a single, reasonable request, you miss the opportunity to leverage the psychological power of perceived concession and contrast that this technique offers. The profound impact of understanding the door-in-the-face technique is that it allows you to strategically make a more modest request seem highly appealing and increase the likelihood of agreement. For self-development, it makes you acutely aware of this persuasive tactic, empowering you to recognize when you might be influenced by a perceived concession and to make more rational decisions. It teaches you a nuanced approach to negotiation and influence, recognizing that sometimes starting big can lead to success on a smaller scale. When you ethically leverage this principle, you can guide others towards a desired outcome by first presenting a larger, justifiable, even if often rejected option, making your true objective seem more attractive and agreeable. To gently and ethically apply the door-in-the-face technique, focus on making an initial request that is genuinely large but not absurd or insulting, and then follow quickly with a second, genuinely more modest request that is your true objective. This isn't about deception, but about leveraging a natural human inclination. For example, if you need a colleague to help you for an hour, you might first ask if they could commit to a full afternoon, the larger, likely rejected request. Then immediately follow up with, "Okay, I understand that's a lot. Would you be able to spare just an hour instead?" Ensure the first request is related to the second, and that the same individual makes both requests. The rejection of the first request should be immediate and clear, allowing for the rapid concession to the second. And importantly, the second request should be genuinely reasonable and the one you actually desire. Always ensure that your initial request, while large, is not so unreasonable that it damages your credibility. So, the next time you wish for a specific request to be met with greater willingness, remember the intriguing power of the door-in-the-face technique. By thoughtfully and ethically leading with a larger ask, and then quickly conceding to your true objective, you don't just communicate, you trigger a powerful sense of reciprocal obligation and favorable contrast, gently guiding others towards a positive and agreeable outcome. Have you ever witnessed someone who is generally highly competent or admirable make a small, relatable blunder? And instead of diminishing your respect, it somehow made them even more likable and human. It's a curious phenomenon, isn't it? This counterintuitive psychological trigger suggests that revealing a minor flaw or vulnerability can actually deepen connection and make you more endearing, rather than less. This often unconscious bias is known as the pratfall effect. What if you could understand how embracing imperfection can foster genuine connection and learn to subtly reveal your authentic self, ensuring your message lands with profound relatability and warmth, like a comforting, genuine smile? This intriguing principle is known as the pratfall effect. It states that an individual's perceived attractiveness increases after they make a mistake, but only if the person is generally perceived as competent. In essence, a small blunder humanizes a highly skilled or attractive person, making them more relatable and approachable, rather than alienating their audience. The mechanism behind the pratfall effect is rooted in our desire for relatability and authentic connection. When someone appears perfectly flawless, they can seem intimidating or even unapproachable. A minor mistake, or pratfall, breaks down that barrier, revealing their humanity and making them seem more like us. This vulnerability fosters empathy and reduces the psychological distance between the communicator and the audience. Neurologically, seeing someone imperfect can trigger a sense of shared experience, making us feel more connected and less alone in our own imperfections. It activates social bonding mechanisms. It's a powerful reminder that true connection often blossoms not from perfection, but from shared vulnerability and authentic humanity. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. A highly respected public speaker might stumble over a word or tell a self-deprecating joke about a small mistake, instantly disarming the audience and making them feel more connected. A beloved celebrity who admits to a minor personal flaw often gains a surge in public affection. In a business pitch, a presenter who briefly acknowledges a small, past error they learned from can appear more trustworthy and humble, rather than less competent. Even in daily interactions, if you accidentally spill a drink or make a silly typo in a message, a light-hearted acknowledgement can often make you more endearing to others, especially if you generally present as capable. Conversely, a perfect, unblemished presentation or a perpetually flawless demeanor, while impressive, can sometimes create a subtle emotional distance, making it harder for others to truly connect on a human level. The profound impact of understanding the pratfall effect is that it empowers you to build deeper, more authentic connections through genuine vulnerability and relatability. For self-development, it encourages you to embrace your own imperfections and view mistakes as opportunities for growth and connection, rather than sources of shame. It teaches you that authenticity is a powerful form of charisma. When you ethically leverage this principle, you can ensure your communication fosters genuine rapport, making your message resonate not just with logic, but with the heartfelt warmth of shared humanity, inspiring trust and strengthening bonds. To gently and ethically apply the principle of the pratfall effect, focus on subtly and appropriately revealing a minor, non-critical flaw or vulnerability, especially if you are generally perceived as highly competent. This isn't about self-sabotage or exaggerating weaknesses, but about strategic authenticity. For example, in a presentation, you might briefly mention a small humorous challenge you faced while preparing, or a minor learning curve you experienced with a new tool. When sharing an insight, you could admit to initially struggling with the concept yourself before finally grasping it. Ensure the pratfall is minor and relatable, not a major failing. It should also be a past or overcome issue, not an ongoing one that undermines your credibility. Deliver it with a touch of self-awareness or humility. The key is to humanize yourself, allowing others to see a glimpse of their own experiences in you, fostering a deeper, more trusting connection. So, the next time you wish for your message to truly connect on an emotional level and build lasting rapport, remember the surprising power of the pratfall effect. By thoughtfully and ethically embracing a touch of genuine imperfection, you don't just communicate. You open a door to authentic connection, allowing your message to land with profound relatability and a warm, human touch, inviting others to walk alongside you on a shared journey. Have you ever found yourself feeling more favorably towards someone after you've done them a small, thoughtful favor, rather than before? It seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? We often assume that doing a favor for someone might make them like us more. But this powerful psychological phenomenon suggests the opposite. Asking for a favor can actually make the other person like you more. This intriguing and often unconscious trigger is known as the Ben Franklin effect. What if you could understand this surprising truth and learn to gently invite others into acts of kindness, fostering deeper connection and goodwill, like a subtle thread weaving two lives together? This fascinating principle is known as the Ben Franklin effect, named after the famous American polymath. The anecdote goes that Franklin, wanting to win over a political opponent, asked to borrow a rare book. Upon returning it, the opponent became much more amicable towards him. The effect states that a person who has done a favor for another person is more likely to do another favor for that person than if they had received a favor from that person. In essence, asking for a favor makes the other person like you more, not less. The mechanism behind the Ben Franklin effect is rooted in cognitive dissonance and our innate need for self-consistency. When someone does a favor for you, their brain experiences a subtle conflict. Why am I doing this for this person? To resolve this dissonance, their mind unconsciously adjusts their attitude towards you to align with their actions. The easiest resolution is to conclude, I must like this person. That's why I'm helping them. It's a form of self-persuasion. Our actions shape our beliefs and feelings. Furthermore, asking for a favor, especially a small one, signals vulnerability and trust, making the asker seem more human and approachable. It's a subtle invitation into a cooperative relationship. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. Instead of just offering help, a new colleague might ask a more experienced team member for advice on a small and specific task. This can subtly build rapport and make the senior colleague feel more invested in the newcomer's success. A salesperson might ask a potential client for a quick piece of feedback on a minor detail, rather than just pushing for a sale. In personal relationships, asking a friend for a simple recommendation, a good restaurant, a book, can subtly strengthen your bond. Teachers might ask a struggling student to help a peer with something they excel at, which can surprisingly boost the helper's own motivation and liking for the class. Conversely, always being the one to offer help, without ever asking for it, can inadvertently create a power imbalance or prevent others from feeling truly invested in the relationship. The profound impact of understanding the Ben Franklin effect is that it allows you to build deeper connections, foster goodwill, and subtly gain influence by inviting others into acts of mutual cooperation. For self-development, it challenges the common belief that asking for help is a sign of weakness, instead revealing it as a powerful tool for building rapport and connection. It teaches you to strategically open yourself to receiving, recognizing that giving and receiving are both vital components of healthy relationships. When you ethically leverage this principle, you can create a stronger sense of shared humanity and mutual investment, nurturing relationships through the very act of seeking gentle assistance. To gently and ethically apply the principle of the Ben Franklin effect, focus on asking for genuinely small, specific, and manageable favors. This isn't about burdening anyone, but about creating an opportunity for them to demonstrate their helpfulness. For example, instead of asking for a huge commitment, you might ask for a brief moment of their time to review a single sentence, or for their opinion on a minor point. Ensure the favor is easy to fulfill and doesn't put them out. Be specific and clear about what you need. Express genuine gratitude after the favor is granted. This reinforces the positive experience and strengthens the newly formed connection. The key is to make the favor an act that signals trust and allows the other person to feel helpful and valued, leading to an unconscious increase in their liking for you. So, the next time you wish to strengthen a bond or foster a deeper connection, remember the surprising power of the Ben Franklin effect. By thoughtfully and ethically asking for a small, genuine favor, you don't just communicate, you invite others into a subtle dance of reciprocity and goodwill, nurturing a profound sense of liking and mutual investment, like quietly weaving a thread of connection that holds true. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where your actions didn't quite align with your beliefs, creating a subtle, uncomfortable tension within you that you felt compelled to resolve? Perhaps you've observed someone stubbornly sticking to a decision even after evidence suggested it was wrong, simply because reversing course would create too much internal conflict. This profound psychological trigger, our innate drive for internal harmony, is known as cognitive dissonance. What if you could understand how creating a slight temporary discomfort can motivate a profound shift in belief or behavior, gently guiding individuals towards greater internal alignment and a more integrated understanding of themselves and the world, like a quiet current urging a ship back to its true north? This fundamental principle is known as cognitive dissonance, a theory proposed by Leon Festinger. It describes the mental discomfort dissonance experienced by a person who simultaneously holds two or more contradictory beliefs, ideas, or values, or is confronted by new information that conflicts with existing beliefs, ideas, or values. This discomfort motivates us to reduce the dissonance, often by changing one of the conflicting elements, usually the belief or attitude, to achieve internal consistency. The mechanism behind cognitive dissonance is rooted in our brain's powerful desire for consistency and coherence. Our minds crave a stable internal world where our thoughts, feelings, and actions are in harmony. When dissonance arises, it's experienced as unpleasant, triggering a psychological drive to alleviate that discomfort. This can lead to various strategies, changing our beliefs to match our actions, changing our actions to match our beliefs, rationalizing our choices, or selectively ignoring contradictory information. Neurologically, experiencing dissonance can activate brain regions associated with conflict and negative emotions. And the resolution of dissonance is often accompanied by a sense of relief and reward, reinforcing the behavior that led to consistency. It's a powerful internal compass, constantly nudging us towards psychological balance. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. A smoker who knows smoking is bad for their health. Belief continues to smoke action. To reduce dissonance, they might rationalize, YOLO. My grandpa smoked and lived to 90, or minimize the risks. Someone who makes a difficult purchase decision often experiences post-purchase dissonance and then seeks out information that confirms their choice was correct. In a political context, voters often find ways to justify their candidate's flaws rather than admit they made a bad choice. If you ask someone to engage in a behavior that is slightly misaligned with their stated belief, the dissonance created might cause them to actually shift their belief to align with the action. Conversely, directly confronting someone with information that strongly contradicts their core beliefs, without creating a pathway for them to reduce dissonance, can lead to increased defensiveness and a hardening of their existing stance. The profound impact of understanding cognitive dissonance is that it allows you to gently facilitate personal growth and behavioral change by subtly highlighting internal inconsistencies, fostering self-reflection and integration. For self-development, it makes you acutely aware of your own inner conflicts, empowering you to identify areas where your actions don't align with your values and to consciously work towards greater integrity. It teaches you that discomfort can be a powerful catalyst for positive transformation. When you ethically leverage this principle, you can gently prompt others to reflect on their own behaviors and beliefs, guiding them towards insights and changes that lead to greater internal harmony and a more meaningful life. To gently and ethically apply the principle of cognitive dissonance, focus on subtly highlighting a small, manageable inconsistency between a person's values, beliefs, and a particular behavior or attitude. Then offer a clear path to resolution that aligns with your message. This isn't about shaming or judging, but about inviting self-reflection. For example, if someone expresses a strong value for environmental protection but uses many single-use plastics, you might gently ask, given your passion for the environment, how do you manage to balance that with daily choices like this? Then, offer an easy, concrete alternative that helps them reduce dissonance. Frame the inconsistency as a shared human struggle, not a personal failing. Always provide an easy, tangible way for them to resolve the dissonance by taking a positive action that aligns their behavior with their values. The key is to create just enough discomfort to motivate change. not so much that it triggers defensiveness. So, the next time you wish for your message to inspire genuine inner transformation and lasting behavioral change, remember the quiet yet powerful pull of cognitive dissonance. By thoughtfully and ethically highlighting subtle inconsistencies and offering a clear path to resolution, you don't just communicate, you empower individuals to align their actions with their deepest values, fostering profound self-discovery and a harmonious inner world. Have you ever heard a question posed not to elicit an answer, but to make you pause, reflect, and perhaps even nod in silent agreement, as if the speaker had just articulated your own unspoken thought? It's a powerful communicative device, isn't it? This subtle yet profound psychological trigger bypasses direct argumentation and instead gently invites the listener's mind to engage, leading them organically to a desired conclusion. This often unconscious persuasive tool is known as the use of rhetorical questions. What if you could understand how posing questions that don't require a verbal answer can powerfully engage your audience's mind and lead them effortlessly to your conclusion? Like a gentle hand guiding them along a natural path of thought, this compelling principle is the strategic use of rhetorical questions. A rhetorical question is a question asked merely for effect or to lay emphasis on some point being discussed, when no real answer is expected. The intent is not to obtain information, but to provoke thought, to introduce a topic, or to lead the audience to a specific conclusion or agreement. The mechanism behind rhetorical questions is rooted in our brain's innate tendency to seek answers and resolve open loops related to the Zeigarnik effect. When a question is posed, our minds automatically begin to search for a response, even if we don't vocalize it. If the question is structured in a way that points to an obvious answer, or one that aligns with our existing beliefs, our internal yes or of course response reinforces the speaker's point without the need for direct persuasion. This internal agreement feels like a self-discovery, making the conclusion more personally resonant and memorable. Neurologically, it bypasses the potential for explicit counter-argument, as the listener is guided to form the conclusion themselves, activating their own cognitive resources in support of the message. It's a subtle way to achieve cognitive buy-in. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. Political speeches are full of rhetorical questions. Are we truly content with the status quo? Or, don't we deserve better? Designed to elicit agreement, not answers. In advertising, a brand might ask, "Don't you deserve to treat yourself?" to encourage a purchase. In a motivational speech, a speaker might ask, "What if you truly believed in your own potential?" to inspire self-reflection. During a presentation, beginning a section with, "Have you ever wondered why?" or "Isn't it true that?" can immediately draw the audience in and make them curious about your upcoming points. Even in daily conversations, if you're trying to make a point about the importance of kindness, you might say, "After all, who doesn't appreciate a little kindness?" effectively making your point through a question. Conversely, simply stating your point as a declarative sentence, "We should be kinder," can feel less engaging and more like a directive. The profound impact of understanding rhetorical questions is that it allows you to powerfully engage your audience, facilitate self-discovery, and subtly lead them to your desired conclusions, fostering deeper agreement and buy-in. For self-development, it makes you aware of how your own internal dialogue shapes your beliefs, encouraging you to ask yourself empowering questions. It teaches you the art of indirect influence and the importance of fostering internal reflection. When you ethically leverage this principle, you can make your message more interactive, memorable, and personally resonant, guiding listeners not by telling them what to think, but by helping them to discover it for themselves, nurturing their own wisdom. To gently and ethically apply the power of rhetorical questions. Focus on crafting questions that invite obvious agreement or profound thought, without demanding a verbal response. This isn't about interrogation, but about thoughtful engagement. For example, instead of stating, "This new approach is essential," you might ask, "Given the challenges we face, isn't it clear that a new approach is essential?" When you want to highlight a universal human experience, ask, "Who among us hasn't felt?" Vary the type of rhetorical question. Some can be used to introduce a topic, others to emphasize a point, and others to challenge assumptions gently. Pause briefly after posing the question to allow the listener's mind to process and formulate their internal answer. Always ensure your rhetorical questions are genuinely leading to a beneficial or insightful conclusion, not manipulative or leading to false premises. So, the next time you wish for your message to truly resonate, compelling minds to engage and hearts to agree, remember the subtle yet profound power of rhetorical questions. By thoughtfully posing inquiries that spark inner reflection and invite natural alignment, you don't just communicate. You gently guide a profound journey of discovery, ensuring your insights are not merely heard, but deeply embraced as their own truth. Have you ever left a long event feeling overwhelmingly positive because of a spectacular finale, even if parts of the middle were a bit tedious? Or perhaps remembered a challenging project as mostly positive, simply because the peak of effort and the final outcome were highly rewarding? It's a fascinating quirk of our memory, isn't it? This powerful psychological trigger suggests that our overall judgment of an experience is disproportionately influenced by its most intense moment, the peak, and how it concludes, the end, rather than a simple average of all moments. This often unconscious bias is known as the peak-end rule. What if you could understand how our experiences are remembered and learn to sculpt your communication, ensuring it leaves a lasting, positive impression that lingers long after your words fade, like the harmonious final notes of a beautiful symphony? This compelling principle is known as the peak-end rule, a cognitive bias identified by Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman. It posits that people judge an experience largely based on how they felt at its peak, its most intense point, whether pleasurable or unpleasant, and at its end, rather than on the total sum or average of every moment of the experience. The duration of the experience itself often has little impact on the memory of it. The mechanism behind the peak-end rule is rooted in how our brains simplify and consolidate memories. Our minds don't store every single detail of an experience. Instead, they create a summarized representation. The most salient emotional points, the peak, and the final moments are given disproportionate weight in this summary because they are highly accessible and emotionally charged. Neurologically, strong emotional experiences, peaks, and recent events, ends, are more easily encoded and retrieved from memory. This cognitive shortcut helps us quickly evaluate past events, but it means that the final moments of an interaction, a presentation, or a project can dramatically color the entire memory of it, overriding less impactful parts. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. A restaurant meal might be remembered as fantastic if the dessert, the end, was exceptional, even if the main course was mediocre. A customer service call, even if long and complicated, can be rated highly if the agent resolved the issue effectively and pleasantly at the very end. Public speakers and performers often save their most impactful stories, jokes, or key takeaways for the end of their presentation to ensure a strong final impression. Marketing campaigns for experiences like vacations or concerts emphasize the thrilling highlights and the satisfying conclusion. Even in a difficult conversation, if you can end on a note of understanding or a commitment to future resolution, the entire interaction might be remembered less negatively. Conversely, a brilliant presentation that fizzles out at the end, or a product that delivers well but has a frustrating final step, can leave a disappointing lasting impression. The profound impact of understanding the peak-end rule is that it allows you to strategically design your communication to create powerfully positive and memorable experiences for your audience. For self-development, it encourages you to focus not just on the content of your interactions, but on the emotional journey you take others on, especially emphasizing impactful moments and strong conclusions. It teaches you the art of leaving a lasting positive resonance. When you ethically leverage this principle, you can ensure your message isn't just understood, but truly felt and remembered fondly, inspiring continued engagement and positive action to gently and ethically apply the principle of the peak-end rule. Focus on identifying key moments for emotional or intellectual impact, the peak, and crafting a compelling, positive conclusion, the end. This isn't about ignoring the middle, but about conscious emphasis. For example, in a presentation, save your most compelling story, a surprising statistic, or a powerful call to action for a significant peak moment. Design a strong closing end with a memorable summary, an inspiring quote, a clear next step, or a powerful vision for the future. Ensure the final moments are positive and clear. If the interaction involves addressing challenges, ensure the resolution or a hopeful outlook is emphasized at the end. For ongoing communication, think about how each interaction concludes. Even a friendly sign-off in an email or a warm farewell in a conversation contributes to the end. Always ensure that the peak and end are genuine reflections of your overall message, not just superficial add-ons. So, the next time you craft a message or engage in an important interaction, remember the enduring power of the peak-end rule. By thoughtfully designing your communication to feature impactful peaks and a resonant end, you don't just convey information, you sculpt an experience, ensuring your message leaves a lasting, positive impression that echoes beautifully in the minds and hearts of your audience, inspiring them long after your words have ceased. Have you ever been told something positive about yourself? Perhaps that you're a natural leader, incredibly creative, or exceptionally thoughtful, and then found yourself striving to live up to that very label. It's a subtle yet remarkably powerful form of influence, isn't it? This intriguing psychological trigger leverages our innate desire for self-consistency and our yearning to embody positive identities, gently nudging us towards behaviors that align with the labels we've accepted. This often unconscious persuasive tool is known as the labeling technique. What if you could understand how assigning a positive label to someone can encourage them to live up to that new identity, gently guiding them towards personal blossoming and empowering them to step into their highest potential? Like a quiet affirmation, igniting an inner flame. This compelling principle is known as the labeling technique. It is a persuasion strategy where a person is assigned a particular trait or characteristic, a label, and then, subsequently, a request or expectation is made that is consistent with that labeled trait. The core idea is that once individuals accept a positive label, they feel an internal pressure to act in ways that are consistent with that label, to maintain their self-image and avoid cognitive dissonance. The mechanism behind the labeling technique is rooted in our deep-seated need for self-consistency and positive self-perception. Humans strive to maintain a coherent and positive view of themselves. When a positive label is applied and accepted, it becomes a part of their self-concept. To preserve this new, favorable self-image, individuals are then motivated to behave in ways that confirm the label. Neurologically, this can involve the activation of neural pathways associated with that identity, making corresponding behaviors more accessible and likely. It's a powerful form of self-fulfilling prophecy, where the expectation inherent in the label gently guides behavior. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. Teachers who tell students they are bright and capable might see those students perform better. In sales, telling a customer they are a smart shopper can make them more receptive to a good deal. Parents who consistently tell their children they are kind or helpful are likely to see those behaviors reinforced. Charities might tell potential donors, as a generous person like yourself, and before asking for a contribution. In a team setting, telling a colleague, I know you're great at problem solving. Could you take a look at this? Often elicits a more engaged response than a simple request. Conversely, applying negative labels can be equally powerful in a detrimental way, leading individuals to internalize those labels and act accordingly. The profound impact of understanding the labeling technique is that it allows you to ethically empower others and gently guide them towards positive behaviors by affirming their potential and positive attributes. For self-development, it makes you acutely aware of the labels you apply to yourself and the power of positive self-talk. It teaches you the immense impact of affirmation and the art of seeing the best in others. When you ethically leverage this principle, you can foster self-belief, encourage growth, and inspire individuals to step into their higher selves, nurturing their journey of personal blossoming with every affirming word. To gently and ethically apply the principle of the labeling technique, focus on identifying a genuine positive trait or potential in the person you're communicating with, and then sincerely and authentically labeling it. This isn't about flattery, but about genuine observation and affirmation. For example, if someone has demonstrated thoughtfulness, you might say, "You're such a thoughtful person. I was hoping you could lend your perspective on." If someone is struggling with a task, you could say, "I know you're incredibly resourceful. I wonder if you could find a way to." Ensure the label is specific and believable. Generic praise is less effective than a specific, earned label. Deliver the label with sincerity and genuine belief. Follow up with a request or expectation that is consistent with the label, giving them an opportunity to embody that positive identity. Always ensure your labels are truthful and empowering, as insincere or false labeling will damage trust. So, the next time you wish for your message to truly inspire and uplift, remember the gentle yet profound power of the labeling technique. By thoughtfully and ethically affirming the positive attributes and potential in others, you don't just communicate, you ignite an inner flame, empowering them to live up to their highest selves, fostering a profound journey of self-discovery and blossoming that resonates deeply within their soul. Have you ever found yourself continuing to pour time, money, or effort into a project or relationship, even when it's clearly not yielding positive results, simply because you've already invested so much? It's as if the sheer weight of what's already been given makes it incredibly difficult to let go, leading us to persist in futile endeavors. This deeply ingrained psychological trap is known as the sunk cost fallacy. What if you could understand how our reluctance to abandon past investments can influence future decisions, and learn to gently guide yourself and others to make choices based on future potential rather than past commitments? Like a wise gardener, knowing when to prune for new growth. This compelling principle is known as the sunk cost fallacy. It is a cognitive bias where individuals continue a behavior or endeavor as a result of previously invested resources, time, money, effort that cannot be recovered. Instead of making rational decisions based on future costs and benefits, we often irrationally continue because of the sunk costs, what we've already lost or committed, creating a powerful psychological pressure to avoid wasting those past investments. The mechanism behind the sunk cost fallacy is rooted in our brain's desire for consistency, as discussed with commitment and consistency, and our aversion to loss, as discussed with loss aversion. Abandoning a project or an investment that has already consumed resources feels like a tangible loss, a waste of effort. To avoid this painful feeling of loss and to appear consistent to ourselves and others, we often irrationally continue, hoping that more investment will eventually turn things around and justify the initial commitment. Neurologically, the pain of acknowledging a failed investment can be significant, and our brains seek to avoid this pain by doubling down, clinging to the hope of future recovery. It's a powerful psychological trap that can lead to throwing good money or time or effort after bad. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. People continue to watch a bad movie because they've already bought the ticket. Businesses continue to fund failing projects because they've invested millions already. Individuals stay in unhappy relationships because of the years they've already spent together. Investors hold on to losing stocks, hoping they will recover, rather than cutting their losses and reinvesting elsewhere. In a team project, a team might persist with a flawed strategy simply because so much time has already been dedicated to it. Conversely, being able to recognize and let go of sunk costs is a hallmark of rational decision-making, allowing for true innovation and adaptation. The profound impact of understanding the sunk cost fallacy is that it empowers you to make more rational, future-oriented decisions and to gently guide others away from unproductive paths. For self-development, it makes you acutely aware of when your own past investments might be clouding your judgment, encouraging you to objectively evaluate situations based on their present and future potential, rather than being bound by the past. It teaches you the wisdom of knowing when to pivot, when to let go, and when to redirect energy towards more fruitful endeavors. When you ethically understand this principle, you can help others to recognize and overcome this powerful bias, guiding them towards choices that truly serve their well-being and future growth. Like a gentle hand, helping them release what no longer serves, to gently and ethically help others overcome the sunk cost fallacy. Focus on framing decisions in terms of future opportunities and costs, rather than dwelling on past investments. This isn't about criticizing past choices, but about shifting perspective. For example, instead of saying, "You've wasted so much time on this," you might say, "Given where we are now, what's the most effective path forward from this point?" Or, "What new opportunities open up if we redirect our resources?" Emphasize the future benefits of changing course and the potential future losses of continuing down an unproductive path. Help them separate the past investment from the current decision. Acknowledge their effort and commitment, but gently shift the focus to what can be gained by pivoting. For instance, I recognize how much you've poured into this, and that dedication is admirable. Now, let's consider where that energy could create the most impact going forward. Always ensure your guidance is empathetic and focuses on empowerment, not judgment. So, the next time you wish for your message to inspire truly liberating and forward-looking choices, remember the subtle yet powerful trap of the sunk cost fallacy. By thoughtfully and ethically shifting the focus from past investments to future potential, you don't just communicate, you empower individuals to release what no longer serves, guiding them towards decisions that foster growth, open new paths, and embrace a future filled with true opportunity. Section 31. Emotional appeal connecting through shared humanity. Have you ever been moved to tears by a story, even if it had no direct bearing on your life, or felt an irresistible urge to help a cause simply because its message touched your heart? Bypassing all logical considerations, it's a profound human experience, isn't it? This powerful, often overwhelming, psychological trigger connects us at the deepest levels, bypassing the intellect and speaking directly to our shared humanity. This innate capacity for feeling and connection is the power of emotional appeal. What if you could understand how tapping into fundamental human emotions can create a powerful, enduring connection with your audience, ensuring your message not only informs, but truly transforms? Like a melody that stirs the very depths of the soul, this fundamental principle is emotional appeal. It's a persuasive technique that aims to elicit an emotional response in the audience to persuade them to believe or act in a certain way, rather than relying solely on logical arguments or factual evidence. It connects with universal human experiences, values, and desires, creating a deeper, more personal resonance. The mechanism behind emotional appeal is deeply rooted in our limbic system, the part of the brain responsible for emotions, motivation, and memory. Emotions are powerful drivers of human behavior and decision-making. When a message evokes strong emotions, whether it's joy, hope, empathy, awe, sadness, or even a healthy fear, it creates a more vivid and memorable experience. Neurologically, emotionally charged information is processed differently and is more likely to be remembered and acted upon. Emotions can also bypass our critical, logical filters, making us more receptive to the message's underlying intent. It's a primal form of communication that speaks to our shared human condition, connecting us through our common vulnerabilities and aspirations. Consider how this plays out in countless real-world scenarios. Charitable organizations frequently use images and stories of suffering or triumph to elicit empathy and encourage donations. Political campaigns use patriotic music, inspiring narratives, or warnings of dire consequences to rally support. Advertisements often create emotional connections with consumers through humor, nostalgia, or aspirational imagery. Public service announcements rely on fear, of accidents or health risks to promote safety. In personal communication, sharing your genuine feelings about a situation can bridge divides and foster understanding far more effectively than a purely logical explanation. Conversely, a message that is purely logical and devoid of emotional connection, no matter how factually sound, can often fall flat, failing to inspire action or leave a lasting impression. The profound impact of understanding emotional appeal is that it allows you to craft messages that resonate deeply with the human spirit, inspiring profound shifts in perspective, and motivating authentic action. For self-development, it encourages you to connect with your own emotions, fostering authenticity and empathy in your communication. It teaches you the immense power of vulnerability and the shared tapestry of human experience. When you ethically leverage this principle, you can ensure your message doesn't just impart information but touches the heart, kindles hope, awakens compassion, and nurtures a genuine sense of connection, transforming mere listeners into active participants in a shared journey of growth and understanding. To gently and ethically apply the power of emotional appeal. Focus on identifying the core human emotion you wish to evoke and weaving your message with narratives, imagery, or language that authentically taps into that feeling. This isn't about manipulation, but about genuine resonance. For example, if you want to inspire hope, share stories of resilience and triumph, or use aspirational language about a brighter future. If you want to foster empathy, use vivid descriptions that allow your audience to step into another's shoes. Use evocative language and metaphors that appeal to the senses and feelings. Share personal anecdotes that illustrate the emotional core of your message. Connect your message to universal human values like love, security, freedom, justice, or belonging. Always ensure that the emotions you evoke are genuine and align with the truth of your message, and that they lead to positive, constructive outcomes, not fear-mongering or false hope. So, the next time you wish for your message to truly transcend words and touch the very depths of the human soul, remember the profound, transformative power of emotional appeal. By thoughtfully and ethically weaving your insights with narratives and language that resonate with shared human emotions, you don't just communicate, you create a healing melody, fostering deep connection, igniting hope, and nurturing the journey of personal blossoming in countless souls, leaving them forever changed by the profound dance within themselves and the vast world around them. We have journeyed together through the intricate tapestry of human psychology, uncovering 30 profound psychological triggers that shape every interaction, every connection, and every moment of understanding. From the subtle dance of mirroring to the resonant power of emotional appeal, from the quiet tug of reciprocity to the magnetic pull of commitment, each insight we've explored has unveiled a hidden truth about how our minds work, how we influence one another, and how we can become truly masterful communicators. This wasn't merely a collection of techniques. It was an exploration of the delicate dance within ourselves and the vast world around us, designed to gently guide you towards a deeper understanding of human nature. Remember, the goal of understanding these triggers is not to manipulate, but to illuminate. It's about recognizing the invisible forces at play in every conversation, every relationship, and every message you send out into the world. It's about cultivating empathy, fostering genuine connection, and empowering yourself to communicate with greater impact, clarity, and warmth. You've learned how to build instant rapport through subtle alignment, how to foster cooperation through genuine giving, and how to make your message irresistibly valuable through ethical scarcity. You now understand how authority lends weight, how social proof builds consensus, and how consistency guides agreement. You've glimpsed the power of liking, the art of framing, and the subtle influence of anchoring. You've uncovered the motivating force of loss aversion and the comforting pull of the bandwagon effect. You've discovered how priming sets the mental stage, how emotional contagion spreads feelings, and how mere exposure builds familiarity. You now hold the keys to storytelling that resonates, the Zeigarnik effect that sparks curiosity, and the contrast principle that highlights impact. You've explored how confirmation bias shapes belief and how the decoy effect nudges choice. You've embraced the power of the halo effect, the gentle progression of foot in the door, and the clever dance of door in the face. You've learned to connect through the pratfall effect, build bonds with the Ben Franklin effect, resolve inner conflict with cognitive dissonance, and engage minds with rhetorical questions. Finally, you understand how the peak-end rule leaves lasting impressions and how the labeling technique empowers through identity, all culminating in the profound connection of emotional appeal. Each of these triggers is a thread in the rich tapestry of human behavior, offering you a profound shift in your mindset and perception. As you step forward, carry these insights not as a rigid rule book, but as a compassionate lens through which to view your interactions. Let them tenderly awaken positive emotions within you and in others, kindling the flame of hope and nurturing your own journey of personal blossoming. May your words become healing melodies, captivating countless souls and touching them deeply, guiding them to better understand the delicate dance within themselves and the vast world around them. The power to communicate masterfully lies within you, not as a trick, but as a deeper understanding of the human heart. Embrace it, practice it with integrity, and watch as your connections deepen, your influence grows, and your life, and the lives of those you touch, become richer, more vibrant, and more harmoniously intertwined. Go forth and communicate with heart, with wisdom, and with the gentle power of understanding. As the final words gently settle, a soft, ambient melody begins to swell, weaving through the space like a comforting embrace. Imagine a warm, golden light slowly expanding, enveloping everything in a serene glow. The music is subtle, inviting introspection, with gentle piano notes and a quiet, uplifting string section. It's not about grand statements, but about a peaceful resonance, allowing the insights shared to sink deeply into the heart and mind. Picture the visuals fading slowly, like a sunset painting the sky with hues of soft purples and oranges, transitioning seamlessly from detailed imagery to abstract, calming patterns. The sound of a gentle, distant breeze might be heard, or the barely perceptible trickle of water, creating an atmosphere of tranquility and reflection. The pace slows even further, inviting you to simply breathe, to feel the weight of wisdom settling within you. This isn't an abrupt ending, but a tender release. The melody gradually becomes softer. The light dims, leaving you with a lingering sense of peace and a quiet confidence in your newfound understanding. It's a moment to simply be with the transformation that has begun, to feel the subtle shift in your perception, and to carry the warmth of these insights into your everyday life. The journey continues, not in words, but in the gentle unfolding of your awakened awareness. The space is filled only with soft, comforting sounds, inviting a quiet contemplation of the profound truths explored, leaving you with a lasting sense of hope and empowered connection